Welcome to This Dumb Week, a weekly live Twitter space hosted by Alex Marinos and yours truly, Dr. RollerGator. Available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and others. Alex, welcome back. Have you had a sufficiently dumb week? And that pre-roll has lied to you. Alex is not with us at the moment. Nathan, you have joined us, though. How are you today, Nathan? Have you had a sufficiently dumb week?
Sufficiently dumb, I would say, but I'm also, it must have been so dumb, in fact, that I saw you guys did a midweek episode that I couldn't join in on.
Ah, there's our fearless co-leader, Alex Marinos. Invite him to co-host. All right. Hopefully he doesn't have any technical problems joining. Yes, it was an exceptionally dumb week last week that forced us to have a midweek episode to fit certain items in. Alex, thank you for joining us.
The dumb is increasing.
Thank you for joining us, Alex. Let's see if you can find that mute button and we can get rolling here, or if we have to...
Yes, I'm here. Hello. Yes, my week has been very dumb. In fact.
All right. Well, let's see how much dumb was involved in this week. Let's get started here with some of our newest activity.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
What was the first question you wanted answered when you became president?
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
All right, thanks, Obama. That's all we're going to get. Aliens are real, but we don't have them at Area 51. I guess that's going to be... We're going to wrap it up there, right? That's enough for the dumb week, right, Alex?
They're real. So from what I gather from that interview, he basically said, "Yeah, they're real," but that's all I can tell you.
They moved on right after that question, so that's all we get is yes, they're real. Thank you. No expanding.
How does this happen? Like, does the interviewer have a tumor or something? Like, surely, like that's the job. Like the entirety of the job is get them to say something interesting and drill in. Like.
That's it. They're real, but we don't have them in Area 51. Sorry, you crazy people who have these wild ideas.
Yeah, we renamed it to Area 52 now, just so we're good fuck with you.
So there you go. Thanks, Obama.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Nathan,
this is weird, right? Because somebody like Obama wouldn't, he puts a lot of stock in, he clearly cares about how he's perceived and stuff. Like, he wouldn't say something this crazy without something being behind it. I'm not saying the aliens are in fact real, but like, this wouldn't be a random thing he said.
You would hope not. You would hope not.
He did say that they're not at Area 51 and there's not an underground facility there, but that still leaves S4 and an above ground facility where the aliens are.
Well, there's also the ones that are supposedly in the ocean, right? That keep popping up in and out of the deep sea.
Oh yeah, the Tic Tac one where it just like flies through the ocean at a million miles an hour.
Yeah. So that's technically not underground, right? Because the ocean is not the ground as a technical classification, correct?
Good job.
I'm glad. Well, I guess that's all we get to know about the aliens.
I swear to God, this whole alien thing seems like a psyop that is being prepared for us now. Like, they're putting out people with real background to just keep telling us, giving us these hints for no follow up. It's like, why would they do that, man? Like, it's fucking insane.
I'm not 100% sure. I let the information just roll right over me, because if tomorrow I found out that they were actually there, like let's say that it was sort of a, an Independence Day situation, and I look outside the window and I see this giant saucer obscuring the sun, I go, all right, I guess we're in for a week. We're in for quite a week.
No, I swear, it's like they've decided that conspiracies are here to stay, and they're trying to feed their own little side project conspiracy to like, I don't know, see how it works, or to drain energy from other things, or whatever. Like, it's so frustrating. Like, the evidence, at least what has come recently, and I'm not some big, alien aficionado. But the stuff that's out recently is like somebody is giving congressional testimony about something that somebody else told him, but he can't tell us who, and we don't have the other person, and the stuff they're talking about, Congress can get access to. Thank you. Like, okay, I guess. It's totally normal.
Well, unfortunately, the former president, Barack Hussein Obama, did not give us any additional information to work with. He didn't say, yes, we have evidence they exist, but they're, several light years away or something, or several hundred light years away, and we haven't really made any communication with them, but that we have made observations. Or, hey, yeah, they kind of do visit it from time to time, but we don't have them in a secret facility. Like, nothing to go on. Just, yeah, they're real. They're cool. All right. Let's talk about.
Maybe he would say, what did you think? What did you think my whole birth certificate thing was about?
There you go. Hold on.
Did you think anybody could be this much of a smooth talker?
Well, moving on to news that's a little bit more tangible, but still somewhat stupid. Drug dealer inspired by Home Alone rigged home with tripwires and pipe bombs. Barnsley, England, a drug dealer who took inspiration from the Home Alone franchise, set booby traps throughout his house, including tripwires and pipe bombs, to protect a cache of drugs, money, and weapons. A release from the West Yorkshire Police detailed the arrest and sentencing of 60-year-old Ian Claughton and the investigation into his home, which required an evacuation of the immediate area and the support of a bomb squad. The investigation began when the UK border fence intercepted a package at Heathrow Airport from China that was addressed to Claughton's ex-wife's residence per the release. Authorities opened the package and allegedly found 5 switch gun folding revolvers, which were identified as realistic imitation firearms, which are illegal to import into the UK. Officers arrived at Claughton's address to arrest him and performed a raid on his home, at which point they reportedly discovered 2 primed man traps, 2 potential firearms, and 4 large plastic bags of cannabis buds with an estimated value of nearly $22,000. Investigators quickly discovered that 2 neighboring properties were also being used as safe houses by Claughton, with one containing a cannabis growing setup with 24 plants in a secret room, the release said. Police also allegedly responded to Claughton's ex-wife's house, where the package of guns was initially sent to, and found over 3 pounds of amphetamine. An array of imitation firearms was also found, along with a crossbow and a homemade flamethrower fashioned from a fire extinguisher filled with petrol, the release read. Claughton was seen demonstrating it on a video recovered from his phone. Authorities also allegedly discovered more than $36,000 in cash stitched into a sofa. A bomb squad was called to defuse the home's booby traps, which Claughton told police were made from crow scarers and did not do much more than making a loud noise when they exploded the plastic pipes. Police also found a trap at the back door that was connected to a 12-volt battery and an air horn meant to alert Claughton of intruders. Claughton claimed that he intended on constructing a third device with a bag of paint that would mark intruders. Claughton told police he was inspired by booby traps from the Macaulay Culkin film Home Alone after intruders broke into his house to steal his cannabis. He claimed that he thought the switch guns were blank fires and that they were for a birthday party, that the amphetamine was for weight loss and chronic fatigue, and that he was only growing cannabis under duress and threats from unnamed others. Claughton pled guilty to bringing the realistic imitation firearm into the country, being concerned in the production of cannabis, and 2 counts of possession with the intent to supply Class B drugs, amphetamines, and cannabis. He was also found guilty of 3 counts of possessing prohibited firearms, 1 in relation to the flamethrower, possession of criminal property in relation to recovering cash, and possession of explosive substances. Now, Alex, if we were going to follow the trajectory of some of our inspirations, we would immediately ban all sales of the movie Home Alone to prevent further copycats.
I mean, we just can't have that material out there encouraging this sort of thing.
You know, such how-to videos need to be discouraged. That's emphatically.
Right. It's practically the anarchist cookbook.
Exactly. And what if Grok were to assist you in creating these traps?
There's so many stories just waiting to be written. AI assists man in, blank. Like every like miserable journo slow news day story, but with AI.
Well, moving on to some related government news. So this isn't necessarily alien related, but involved airspace and some controversy with airspace closing down. CBP shot down party balloons with anti-drone tech before FAA closed El Paso airspace, sources say. The sudden closure of El Paso's airspace Wednesday came sometime after U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials used an anti-drone laser that was provided by the military to shoot down objects that were later identified as party balloons, four people familiar with the matter said. The technology was used without coordinating with officials from the Federal Aviation Administration, the people said. The testing of U.S. military-owned laser technology was taking place in the proximity of the airport. The FAA responded by issuing a temporary flight restriction notice, which was to shut down the airspace for 10 days. It prevented flights, including helicopters used for medical transport, below 18,000 feet. The airport is a major hub for the region, with more than 50 flights scheduled every day. The airspace was reopened several hours later Wednesday morning. The decision prompted confusion and finger-pointing inside the Trump administration over who was to blame. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican from Texas, frustrated by the conflicting reports and lack of information, requested a classified briefing with the FAA administrator over the closure. Quote, "At this point, the details of what exactly occurred over El Paso are unclear," said Cruz, the head of the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. FAA Administrator Brian Bedford was on the Capitol Hill Wednesday evening for a scheduled closed-door meeting and refused to answer reporters' questions about the closure. He said he would respond to Cruz's request once he received it. One of the people familiar with the testing said the Defense Department has a working relationship with Homeland Security, where CBP is headquartered, that allowed its personnel to use certain military equipment for its objectives, testing, evaluation, and use along the southern border. Recently, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth authorized the use of the weapon for CBP, the people said. Spokespeople for CBP referred questions to the White House, which did not elaborate beyond initial statements. Initially, a Trump administration official and some lawmakers said the airspace had been closed because the U.S. military had shot down a cartel drone. Administration officials maintained that was the case. But people familiar with the matter said this was not true, and the Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said Wednesday there was no indication that any cartel drones were operating near the border. It then appeared the airport grounding was in response to the testing of this technology by the military, but it has now become clear, according to people, that it was CBP using it. Separately, the Defense Department is testing similar laser weaponry that military personnel will potentially use to counter drones used by drug cartels. That weaponry requires coordination with the FAA, and a meeting is scheduled to take place February 20th to discuss safety and regulatory issues. The people familiar with the matter said that the meeting could help to explain why the FAA responded to the 10-day airspace closure. El Paso Mayor Renard Johnson said the temporary flight restriction was unnecessary and should have never happened. This unnecessary decision has caused chaos and confusion in the El Paso community, he said at the news conference. You cannot restrict airspace over a major city without coordinating with the city, the airport, the hospitals, the community leadership. That failure to communicate is unacceptable. Johnson said medical evacuation flights had to be diverted to Las Cruces, about 45 miles away. All aviation operations, including emergency flights, were grounded, he said. This was a major and unnecessary disruption, one that has not occurred since 9/11, he said. The FAA has said that in a notice to airmen that no flights will be able to operate in the airspace over El Paso and the neighboring community of Santa Teresa, New Mexico, for 10 days from February 11th to February 21st. The FAA, which is only responsible for U.S. airspace, did not elaborate on why the restrictions have been put in place in El Paso, which borders Mexico, and the city of Ciudad Juarez. The notice said the airspace was classified as national defense airspace. So, Alex, did you hear anything on the interim about this closing? Because I know that it caused quite a bit of panic in left-leaning news circles that there was something going on. I heard a little bit of it on the right-leaning sphere, but I heard more of it on the left-leaning sphere that Donald Trump was up to something with the airspace closure, and this is sort of the outcome that we have here, according to this report, that it's party balloons.
All I have to say is that this is another great example of the efficiency of this government, this administration. Because, as we all remember, the Biden administration used a Sidewinder missile to take down the balloon that they were looking into, like the previous balloon gate. And a Sidewinder costs $470,000 a pop. I assume they used one. Maybe they used more than one. I don't know. Whereas the laser weapon that was used, according to the quick search I did while you were talking, costs $13 a pop. So we're talking about, I don't know, 300,000x improvement in efficiency or something.
So this would be a Doge success story, possibly.
Exactly. You're just not seeing the angle here.
Understood. Well, I'm glad that the 10-day ban on air travel in the area was reduced to only perhaps half a day when they noticed that they made a mistake and that there was no major threat.
Maybe they shut down the airspace because they were worried that the laser weapon, whatever, the person with their finger on the trigger was a little bit too trigger happy, and they couldn't let planes through until we figured out who this moron is and how to get him out of it.
Well,
it seems like kind of a non-issue to me. Maybe the FAA meant to type 1 day and they accidentally typed 10 or something. And, maybe the balloon looked like a drone.
Maybe it was 2 days.
Test your crazy laser weapon. Seems
maybe
okay.
It was 2 days, but it printed out in binary and everyone got confused.
There you go.
But I think we're going to start hearing a lot about directed energy weapons of all sorts. It seems like that's kind of inching into the news slowly, I think.
Well, do you remember many years ago, there was a story of a radical Islamist husband and wife duo who held some people captive, and the government had obtained, after I believe they were taken out, it was a hostage situation. I believe after they were taken out, the government obtained their iPhones, and eventually Apple assisted, or refused to assist rather, the government in breaking the encryption on the iPhones. And the government found a third-party set of hackers. I don't know who they found to crack into the phones. And that was, a little bit of a controversy because Apple basically refused the subpoena to assist the government in getting the iPhones. Well, the Samantha Guthrie's mother kidnapping story has somewhat of a similar beat to it that begins to intersect with what we have been recently talking about, which is the digital panopticon that our friend Larry Ellis has from Oracle has been promoting as a wonderful thing to bring in, which is that there will be cameras everywhere, audio listeners devices everywhere, and that we will all be safer because we will all be under constant watch and surveillance. Well, it turns out that I'll play a report here from CNN that the Google Nest cameras that were on the doorbells of the Guthrie's household were not subscribed to the cloud archiving service. Yet Google was able to recover cloud archives of the video feed.
This is the technical part of the story that I want to learn more about, that I bet many viewers want to learn more about, because this is a key part of the breakthrough. My sense is that the engineers and the technicians at Google, the company that owns Nest, deserve a lot of credit for this breakthrough. And you can read between the lines of Kash Patel's statement and get that sense. He said, working with our partners, they were able to obtain this video. Well, for viewers who aren't familiar how Nest works, these are some of the Nest cameras. So here's one of them that's for outdoor use. Here's an indoor camera that's for indoor use. You plug these in, you're able to see whatever the camera sees. But unless you have a monthly subscription to the cloud interface, there's not a backup of the recordings. You're able to see the video live if you have it plugged in, but you're not able to see a backup. A lot of people don't bother to pay for the backup for $10 a month or whatever it is, because all you're ever going to see on your cameras is, well, in the Tucson desert, maybe a coyote every once in a while. But in this instance, according to the FBI, the Google engineers, these data forensics experts, were able to somehow retrieve the raw material that was coming off the camera live, that was being fed onto the servers live, even though there was not a subscription. There's going to be a lot of questions about that, and so far we've only seen the video from what seems to be the doorbell camera and not from any other cameras around the home, Boris.
So, Alex, it appears that Google, to some degree, is archiving video feeds for their customers, regardless of whether or not they subscribe to the archiving service. And I guess the correct subpoenas, that evidence can be obtained.
Well, look, we got to figure out exactly what it is that the free package provides, because let's say if it has like limited playback, for example, for like 10 minutes or something, for example, and then they delete it, you can totally see how they might have been able to bring it back effectively through all sorts of mechanisms. So the question is like, what does the free package do? And does it contain any sort of non-streaming capabilities?
So let's go from a non insidious standpoint. Architecturally speaking, it is very possible that Google has a system set up where, for ease of design, they have the same sort of archival and deletion procedures for whatever level of service you subscribe to.
Right.
But whether or not they grant you access to the archives is the premium that they charge you. That for sake of design, they don't have any complicated switches where, if you subscribe to the tier, higher tier, you get the storage, and if you don't subscribe to it, you don't get the storage. Though they're storing you as part of the flow, no matter what. It's just whether your account has access to the resources that makes the determination. That would be sort of an ease of programming, sort of a simplified architecture, just for the simple fact that it's easier to keep managed, as opposed to having another layer where things could go wrong, which is switching an account to start storing in a different bucket and things like that, where it's just a slightly less of an architecture nightmare. I could see that as being a possibility. I guess the question goes, if that's the case, under what circumstances is the customer entitled to have their privacy respected under the Fourth Amendment, which is the unreasonable search and seizure of their...
I think the Fourth Amendment has been thoroughly...
Yes.
Hollowed out at this point, so...
I think,
the Fourth Amendment should probably extend to your laptop and phone at the border, for example, but nobody gives a shit. So yeah, I don't know. It's I do realize that it sounds shady. I think a lot of how shady I feel it is will come down to what are the exact details of what the free package gives you, and whether there was any purpose at all to storing the thing or not. But it's almost certainly going to be something like what you said, where they designed a single path with a differentiation happening later, rather than do that on the early path.
Yeah. And now, obviously, in the case of the Guthries, I'm sure that they're very happy that without having subscribed to the archive service, that Google was able to recover that, because in this particular circumstance, it's one of those, you wish you would have had it, and magically Google did have it. So I'm sure that there's nobody that's going to complain about this particular situation that's in the loop here, right? The Guthries are probably extremely happy that it existed. The government's happy that it existed, and Google's happy that it existed. So all players involved are happy that this was the way that
let's not forget that the kidnappers are probably pretty pissed about this breach of...
I have failed to consider the kidnappers. I apologize for my oversight. You are correct. Nathan, do you happen to have any thoughts, or do you agree with my speculation on the architecture, and that would be why Google would have had these archives available to...
I missed the exact details of what you said, but I was thinking that they probably just keep it all on like a rolling buffer, And then maybe when you opt in to pay for it, you get like 24-hour footage, or they have some amount there, or they just keep a buffer as they are rolling storage. I mean, I think you're like guaranteed to be hit by this if you get any of these cloud things. Like, I wouldn't assume that they're not keeping all of it. And if you really want privacy, run something self-hosted. And then I assume on the Fourth Amendment side that, like, if this wasn't them using the footage of the people who had the problem, they probably would have had more trouble getting it. But I'm not sure how that'd work with like a subpoena or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the government subpoena that really would concern me the most, not necessarily a company being helpful when a customer would really appreciate
in effect what's happened now is that there's been this is operating as a memo to all interested government departments.
Oh yeah, this is total precedent now that you can just get, even if people don't have the subscription, you might as well just go subpoena their Ring cameras and their Google cameras and whatever the hell else, and maybe you'll get lucky.
Yep. Exactly. And they can't even say we don't do it.
And now the question, I guess, particularly with the Fourth Amendment comes in, if Nest has indoor cameras, what is your expectation of assurance of right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment when it comes to the cameras that are inside your house? Because you could make an argument that the outside of the house is filming a public space, so it is less privacy focused, right? It's less privacy oriented because if you are in public, right, you are already
plain view.
Yep, plain. Yeah. So if you happen to be in your underwear in your own front lawn, everyone in the neighborhood can see you just like the camera. So that's really not a privacy violation, so to speak. But what about the cameras that are inside the house on the same network?
I think it's interesting, and I don't know if they'll potentially change what they're doing there. Like, if I was Google, I'd be like, do I really want to have this data for everybody who doesn't pay? Maybe storage is getting a little pricey, and I'm just going to keep 10 minutes in a rolling buffer and not days.
Well, you still have to train your Geminis there and your nano.
Do you think they
bananas.
use that? I'm tempted to go read the fucking Nest.
Ring camera like footage is some of the best quality spoofs that those things can generate, man.
I mean, there is a lot that just ends up on YouTube and stuff, but I think we're getting to a generalization point where like Google doesn't need your, like, do they really need this? Like, I got, like, most of it's going to be so boring. Like, most of the Ring camera footage, like all the Nest and Ring camera footage is like an empty driveway for 22 hours a day.
Yeah, but with modern compression, the delta on those frames can be done really,
if they're doing
really
anything
cheaply.
like super duper clever, maybe, but there's enough noise and like leaves blowing and shit that it's still going to be like non-trivial. I don't know. If Google deleted all my free unlimited Google Drive that I was paying for decades, I think they could go clean this up. And if I was them, I would do that just so that I don't even have the footage, so I can't be subpoenaed again.
Yeah. But it is a reminder to people who are tech savvy, who do want these sort of personal surveillance items to try to find solutions that are off cloud.
I think at this point, it's becoming trivial for people to just code one themselves with an agent, even if they don't know how to code. It is really like, you just tell it like, how to make a camera with a Raspberry Pi and a camera module and stream it through through your Wi-Fi to a hard drive. It is trivial. It really is trivial. Like, you might have spent a couple of hours doing it, but like, that's it. Yeah. And I'm probably forgetting. Not
between like Tailscale and FFmpeg and like a few other tools. There's already open source NVRs. I just set one up recently. Yeah, and it all has AI detection and all this kind of stuff. Super trivial to set up on-prem.
All right,
yeah,
Nathan,
it's just that.
Did you just volunteer to write a tutorial for everyone?
Yeah, set up a thing called Frigate, and then ask your agent to set up FFmpeg to read the stream off your camera and ship it to Frigate. Easy peasy.
I guess what I'm saying is that a lot of things that used to be cloud services, we might see them migrating to home services because it's just a lot easier to just have I've now started doing this for my house. I made a thing which, like, any project I do in Cloud Code that I publish it to .local. So anybody in my house can just go to whatever .local and use it. Actually, fun story. I made a thing that if you put a .local that doesn't exist, it just makes something up. So, for example, if you put my name.local, it will make, my homepage. Like, it just treats the domain as
I like that. That's like the AI thing where, like, if you see it trying to call a tool enough that doesn't exist, you ought to just build it.
Yeah.
So if you gotta...
it's kind of crazy because then I made this printables.com, which has 3D models. So I navigated to printables.local, and holy shit, it goes all the way to the point where it downloads an STL for you.
Oh, wow. That's pretty fancy. I do something similar, but mostly on Tailscale so that I can access most of it on any of my devices.
So just to be clear, if you ever get banned from the worldwide internet, you'll have your own hallucinating local internet to browse.
That's correct. That's correct. And it's going to be just as, the quality is going to be just as good.
All right. Well, hey, Alex, you had just mentioned that, because of this aliens exist sort of thing, that we're kind of being bombarded with conspiracy stuff lately. And that's just the conspiracy week where it's all exploding.
It's going mainstream. Yeah.
you're not wrong, because we're trudging up things from the 90s to bring back as main conspiracy plot lines for the 2026. Kurt Cobain death. New review dredges up murder theory. There's a new conspiracy theory to add to the pile of speculation surrounding Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain's death, which has officially been ruled a suicide for more than 30 years. Authorities have long maintained that Cobain, a 27-year-old with a history of substance abuse and mental health issues, used a shotgun to kill himself at his home in Seattle on April 5th, 1994. That official version of events has long been second-guessed for a variety of reasons, such as the amount of heroin that was in Cobain's system, while other observers have claimed physical evidence at the scene supports a different narrative. Along those lines, newly published report in the Daily Mail suggests someone else injected Cobain with a large amount of heroin, shot him, and then staged things to look like a suicide. Quote, suicides are messy, and this was a very clean scene, independent researcher Michelle Wilkins told the newspaper after a team of forensic scientists evaluated Cobain's autopsy results and police evidence. Their peer-reviewed paper offers several options, pushing back on the official explanation of Cobain's death. Among them, Cobain presumably would not have been able to operate the shotgun based on significant amount of heroin that had been injected into his system. The heroin kit at the death scene was found several feet away from and appeared neatly organized. Cobain's alleged suicide note appears to have been finished by another hand. Joseph Scott Morgan evaluates new Kurt Cobain claims. Death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan, host of the Body Bags podcast, considered some of the arguments while appearing Wednesday on the Jesse Weber live show. He noted that although the amounts of heroin in Cobain's system was beyond the dosage most people might tolerate, the musician had a history of drug abuse. His tolerance level would be through the roof compared to somebody that was just introduced to heroin suddenly. As to whether Cobain could have operated the shotgun, Morgan said that it depends on whether his motor skills would have been compromised. It's possible, too, he suggests, that the musician ingested a large amount of heroin and then used the firearm as part of a strategy of redundancy to end his life. The King County Medical Examiner's Office stands by its original ruling, said the Daily Mail, which reached out for comment. We've seen nothing to date that would warrant reopening of the case as to our previous determination of death, the office said. Cobain, co-founder Nirvana, with bassist Chris. Oh, sorry, that's a picture caption. So that was circulating this week as sort of reopening the narrative that Kurt Cobain did not kill himself, similar to Uncle Jeffy not being responsible for his own death in prison. So if you want more conspiracies, you can join the Nirvana train there, Alex.
Yeah, it's well, what's her name? Courtney Love is never gonna get out of this. It's just gonna keep going forever, I think. Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because as a teenager in Greece, this is all I knew about Seattle. Like Nirvana, basically. And now I live there. But other than that, I don't know. It's I don't know why it would be coming back now. I mean, we've had that story. I don't know how much you know about this whole thing, but like there's when they say various reasons, the suspicion has always been that his wife did it somehow.
Right. Yeah.
Or she had him killed.
Now his daughter does not feel that way. His daughter has always maintained that she's very upset with him for being selfish and taking his own life. The daughter.
Yeah, but I mean, she was 2 years old at the time. like, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just saying
Right?
in her adult life, that is her perspective, that he did kill himself and she's pissed off at him
Sure.
for it.
Yeah, it's okay. I think she'll be fine. Like, anyway, yeah, I don't know. There's no. I'm just. It's just fascinating that it somehow is coming back. Like they don't seem to be talking about any new evidence or anything. It's just they decided to look at it again and it's news.
Yeah, because it's Conspiracy Revival Week.
That's right. It's I'm telling you, it's going mainstream. Right at this point, you gotta have a few that you believe in to even pass in mainstream media.
Well, I mean, if you're going to be taken seriously in this day and age, you have to have at least one out there conspiracy theory that you take seriously. Otherwise, are you even paying attention? Speaking of paying attention, Alex, you and I both came across serendipitously an interview from Louis Theroux, who is a sort of a very popular documentarian over in the UK, who had done a recent interview in the last several weeks with Marina Abramovic, who is a central figure in the Pizzagate story that we've actually just re-released our long expose on, that has her as one of the central figures in it, where they actually discuss the Pizzagate saga. So everything lines up with, our show drives the news out there, in some ways, where I'm starting to believe that we're conjuring up the dumb accidentally. And so now I'm going to play this clip from Louis Theroux interviewing Marina Abramovic. Now I'm going to also actually attach our episode of Pizzagate to the thread here for the space, because if you haven't listened to it, it's actually a lot of people have already listened to it, so maybe you have in this audience currently. But we take you through the real actual meat of the Pizzagate story, not the hyperbolic sensationalist stuff, which, you may have a personal degree of certainty about the truth of, so all the code words for pizza and what was actually going on at the Comet Ping Pong Pizza shop. But we take you through where there's more smoke, actual things to believe might have fire behind them, not necessarily conclusive proof, but things that are somewhat alarming. And Marina Abramovic is a, quote, artist who is a central figure in these more concerning aspects of what might be going on in the broader Pizzagate story. And one of the items in the Pizzagate story involves something that Marina Abramovic calls spirit cooking. And spirit cooking was, at one point, a art piece that she did, a live art piece where she took pig's blood and smeared it on the wall and wrote these bizarre, she calls them short poems, but it was like bizarre instructions written in pig's blood that said, like, cut your middle finger and suck the pain and things like that. Just odd cryptic messaging. And one of them, another main character, Tony Podesta in the Pizzagate story, had donated $10,000 to Marina Abramovic through a Kickstarter in order to win dinner with her. And the dinner was a spirit cooking themed dinner. And it was, according to the Kickstarter, it was going to be very normal, sort of a normal dinner that was just labeled in honor of this art piece that she did. But Louis Theroux asks her about Pizzagate and also asks her about the spirit cooking dinner. And Alex, I want to get your take here to see if this is something that you would spend $10,000 on, because you're not infinitely rich, but you're decently well off. You have a couple extra spending dollars to be a little bit frivolous with, I think. And so I'm wondering if this is something that you might consider spending $10,000 on.
Can we talk about the Pizzagate thing?
What?
The Pizzagate thing. That must have been stressful. It sounded like
It's stressful because I have the really, life warning.
death threats, do you mean?
That they will come and take the devil out of my body, and they
From
will,
who?
Then my, unknown.
We should explain for people listening what happened.
It would be so wonderful. Anybody can Google Marina Abramović, New York Times, the Pizzagate. I have 2 huge report of this with title, I am not Satanist, I am an artist. But if you want a story, it would take a few minutes to
It was
explain.
basically, you were friendly with, who is it, John Podesta?
Tony Podesta is a collector, which I work with. John Podesta is his brother.
I worked with the Clintons.
We worked for the Clinton for a long time. And he was in town, Tony, and I invited him for dinner. I used to make these funny dinners called spirit cooking, which I make normal food with the funny recipes. They're just kind of poetry. Let's tell you one recipe. Take 13 leaves of green cabbage, mix with 13,000 grams of pure jealousy, put in iron pot.
Pure jealousy.
Jealousy, put in iron pot, and eat just before attack.
Just before attack?
Attack, jealousy attack. Then next will be like spill fresh morning urine, put over the nightmare dreams. Just pee over the nightmare dreams. I mean, there's like
That's a normal recipe, funny normal recipe, Alex, to make a fun, eventful dinner worth a $10,000 contribution.
Look, I mean, it's hard to do things these days that have not been done. I think you have to appreciate the artist's need to break new ground here.
You're definitely toggling with the temperature parameter on your LLM response there. Getting the lower end of the probability spectrum on the next words that are going to come out of your mouth.
You did not predict what I was going to say.
Sprinkle urine, or that's the morning urine.
I think literally that is the whole point of this kind of art, vibe, right? It's like, do things that are like, how the hell did you think of that? Kind of.
I just ran a calculation of the least plausible thing to follow logically next, and I added it. I'm playing Mad Libs with life, right? I'm just trying to find out the most bizarre thing to insert in any personal scenario.
Over the nightmare dreams, just pee over the nightmare dreams. I mean, there's like kind of vision and the images, or you have
surrealistic poems.
Yes, all. Anyway, so
Louis Theroux's just there, like, yes, this all makes sense to me.
I mean, he's probably a weird guy too, I guess. he's got his moments.
Okay, so let's pretend for a moment, and seriously speaking, that Marina Abramović is just eccentric, and she's not evil, and she's not involved in anything that might be truly alarming. That all of this is just bizarre behavior meant to titillate people, and that is her form of expression. The fact that her interviewer at the moment, Louis Theroux, is sitting there and listening to this, going like, yeah, totally innocent. This makes sense. And not responding.
But isn't that his shtick though? Isn't that his whole shtick?
He does.
That is exactly how Louis Theroux would respond to anything like this. People say totally wacko shit, and he just doesn't react at all, and it's amazing.
But this is a interview podcast. It's not his documentary style. So that's where I would say that my expectations would be a little bit different. You are correct that Louis Theroux goes, like, he's done some interesting documentaries where he will go into the neo-Nazi circles in the United States, for example, and spend the day with him and just sort of listen to them. But he would give them a little bit of pushback and go, don't you think that some people might consider this extreme? Or don't you think that some people might be offended by, and blah, blah, blah. And he's just making the response, it's just poetry. Got it.
He sent to me a little message, and he said, you never met my brother, he's in town, send me this email, and send me the John Podesta email. I send email to John, if you want to come, his brother is coming, blah, blah. He sent email to his brother. It's not going to come, not to me. Never had meeting with John Podesta, never saw him, and never came for the dinner. Now, it's this whole thing with the investigational emails, the WikiLeaks. And in these emails, the most strange thing was that I invite him, Tony Podesta, to come to spirit cooking dinner in my place. So they Google me. See the cut star, communist star in my stomach.
Basically, they would have leapt on these apparently
they see as a pentagram immediately.
Pentagram, seemingly satanic symbols and whatnot.
So from
that
one
would have been
day,
catnip, because
one day from another, I open my email and it's bombarding that I'm the witch, that I'm eating children, that I'm drinking the blood with Hillary Clinton in Pizzagate. I completely shocked.
They put it together with the pre-existing narrative, which was based on a kind of bonkers conspiracy theory to do with trafficking of children and satanic ritual abuse. So there was this framework for it, and you slotted into it perfectly.
Completely. And then came horrible, I had to change my emails, to change my credit cards, because they was attacking me. They were going to come and, they cut my throat, they're going to take devils out of me. And
Crazy QAnon type. Do you know about QAnon?
Yes, the same guy who said 36 kids killed, in this horrible, the school that actually was.
Now, I want to take a moment here, and you can hear her lamenting, and Louis Theroux saying it's also bizarre that people would be accusing her of doing weird things like drinking blood of babies or whatnot. And I've attached to the space a photo of one of her art pieces where she and Lady Gaga are drinking from a blood fondue fountain with a human body inside of the this tub. Okay? I mean, at some point, lady, you are kind of responsible for making people think this.
Would you say that about a rape victim, Gator? because she's dressed.
Yes, because she's wearing. If the dress said "rape me" on the back, yes, I might actually say that is possibly an invitation.
I see.
You
think she'd be able to see the artist side of this, right? That her art is having an impact on the world, so to speak.
It is making people really think. It is putting people in a position of uncomfortability and making them think and having them search their souls deeply to find out what they believe.
And even act.
And even take action in the real world. Yeah, it is.
It's truly
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Was he a ringleader for the allegations against you?
That is Alex Jones.
Really? Did he get in touch with you, or he was talking about you?
No, talking about me, not in touch. Then he actually promoted me from the priestess into highest priestess. Now I'm high priestess.
According to Alex Jones?
Yeah. So I got so fed up with this shit. I can't take this away from me. I made a big article in New York Times say I'm not Satanist, I'm an artist, and nothing I can do. And it's still.
So that's serendipitous and very timely of Marina to have this interview with Louis Theroux, just as we are talking about the parallels between the Epstein story and Pizzagate, and we republished our Pizzagate story.
By the way, notice the false dichotomy there. In the spirit of teaching people, patterns to spot, she said, "I'm not a Satanist. I'm an artist." Is that, can Satanists not be artists? Yes. Like, are they ruled out of the artist class by virtue of their belief in Satan, the Dark Lord? As a brief aside. What's going on with Alex Jones? I mean, I don't know if you've been tuned into this, Gator, but you'd think that Alex Jones right now would be taking victory laps because literally everything he said is coming true somehow, and yet he's actually in some weird way has gone normie and is like arguing against what's going on. It's very strange.
I mean, maybe if you get sued for $82 trillion, your mind changes on some things. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's especially if somebody bailed you out that then has an impact on your demeanor. It's very odd.
Well, Marina Abramovic makes an appearance again, right as we republish our Pizzagate story.
I had a question for you, Gator.
Yeah, sure.
If you could ask her some questions, what would you ask?
What was the first art piece that you did that you feel expressed your true artistic vision? Because this woman, now just if you're not familiar with her, if you didn't listen to the Pizzagate story that we told, Maria Abramovic plays a central role in that story, and her art pieces have been very extreme and visceral. And one of her most famous art pieces was her standing naked in front of, or laying naked, or she was naked in front of an audience for many hours, and had a table filled with items, different types of items like screwdrivers or other items that the participants, the patrons, the people coming to see this art piece were invited to touch and take and use on her body in any way they felt necessary. This was her art piece. She was, I guess, doing it as a stress test for herself and to see what people would do if given complete liberty. And it's my understanding, I don't know all the details, that some of the participants went somewhat far in what they did to her body. But this is the type of art that this woman comes up with. And as I attach to the space here, the photo of her and Lady Gaga eating from the art piece that she created, which is the blood fondue, the human blood fondue fountain. There is I don't know if it is usually they do hire artists or people who are, local actors or whatnot to play the role of laying down and pretending to be a dead body. It is not usually like some sort of giant piece of tofu in the form of a human. But this is what she does for art. She tries to create this morbid imagery, this stuff that is on the extremes of human consciousness, I guess. And she turns them into things that are intentionally designed to get people to react aghast. And then when people find out that she's connected to a story that involves things that are alarming in nature, like possible human trafficking, she's somehow surprised that people think that she's being serious with this kind of imagery. And I'm sorry, Toots. Yeah, you are kind of responsible for creating this impression.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, Alex, we get to move on.
Let's move on. Yes,
we get to move on to much better topics, right? Much nicer topics this week.
Well, let's see, Gator.
We'll reveal this year, and some of the names were surprising. These are just allegations. Stephen Hawking was never charged, except for when his battery ran low. That must suck for these kids. Can you imagine being on Epstein's Island? You already hate vegetables.
It's a tough one. How do you punish a guy who's already spent his entire life in an electric chair? You know how hard that is in his condition to get to Epstein's Island? That is one horny paraplegic, huh?
Yeah, he deserves a round of applause. I agree.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. This guy loves vagina. You could say he has a crippling addiction. Look, I feel bad making fun of the guy. He can't even drive, but he loves to traffic. Look, he does have an incurable genetic disease. He's a pedophile. Allegedly.
They interviewed the Epstein pilot, and he said every underage person he saw on the flight was with a parent or an adult. And I was like, yeah, those are two different things. Can't go to the playground. Is that your son? It's a kid.
This is the song that doesn't end. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing it forever just because this is the song that doesn't end. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing
To the other news tonight, there are new developments in the Jeffrey Epstein case, new questions about what President Trump knew about Epstein's sex crimes and when. And the president's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, who said he broke ties with Epstein in 2005, calling him, quote, gross. But Lutnick admitted today he was on Epstein's private island years later and after Epstein was convicted. Here's Barry Bruce.
Tonight, new questions about what President Trump knew about Jeffrey Epstein's criminal behavior and when. In an FBI document from 2019, a former Palm Beach police chief says Trump was one of the first calls he received when word got out in the mid-2000s that Epstein was being investigated for sex crimes. The police chief, Michael Reiter, telling the FBI in that phone call Trump told him Epstein's behavior was widely known. The FBI stating Donald Trump told Reiter that he threw Epstein out of his club. Trump called the Palm Beach Police Department to tell him, thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this. The report adds Trump told Reiter that he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present, and Trump got the hell out of there. Trump, who was friends with Epstein for over a decade, has repeatedly said he knew nothing at the time about Epstein's crimes. He insists he broke off their relationship when he learned Epstein was luring away young female staffers who worked at Mar-a-Lago, but that he didn't know why.
I don't know really why, but I said if he's taking anybody from Mar-a-Lago, he's hiring or whatever he's doing. I didn't like it, and we threw him out.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill today, one of Trump's top officials grilled about his own dealings with Epstein.
Did you lie to the American people about your interactions with Epstein?
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick had said he'd distanced himself from Epstein in 2005, even calling him gross on a podcast last fall.
So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
But today, under oath, Lutnick admitted he had lunch with Epstein on his private island in 2012 after Epstein was convicted of sex crimes.
I did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation. My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies. We were on family vacation. We were not apart. To suggest there was anything untoward about that in 2012, I don't recall why we did it. But
Mr. Secretary, I mean, you made a very big point of saying that you sensed that this was a bad person in 2005. And then, of course, in 2008, he was convicted of soliciting prostitution of a minor. And yet you went and had this trip and other interactions.
The White House tonight standing by Lutnick, even as Democrats and at least one Republican are calling for the Commerce Secretary to step down. It comes as more salacious details emerge from the FBI documents, including this email from 2014 showing Epstein asking his longtime pilot to obtain cameras for Epstein's Florida house. Writing, let's get 3 motion-detected hidden cameras that record. His pilot replying, already 2 purchased. It's amazing how small they are. I'm installing them into Kleenex boxes now. I'll bring them by later today. And David, on the issue of Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, who 24 hours ago pleaded the Fifth, her lawyer saying she will answer questions, but only if granted clemency. And tonight, the White House still not ruling out the possibility of a pardon. David.
Oh, Howie. What a Lutnick. Alex, I need you to chime in here on.
I don't know. It's go ahead.
Howard Lutnick is not my favorite person inside of the Trump administration. I find him to be rather oafish.
Who is your favorite person inside the Trump administration? Do tell.
Right now it's anybody I've never heard from. That's my favorite people. I forgot.
Isn't it amazing that RFK is the least controversial member of the administration?
Do you really need to say that?
Well, I mean, it's.
He said, "I'm not
I
scared
haven't
of a
heard
germ.
anything about it
I
recently.
used to snort cocaine off of toilet seats."
I see. Yeah. So,
because what was it? Kevin Bergram is the Secretary of the Interior, and I haven't heard from him the entire administration. So I think he's my favorite.
It's definitely it's holding on to your neutral feelings as opposed to everybody else.
Well, we've kept all of our interior on the inside of the country, so that's.
How do you feel about Pam Bondi these days?
She's coming up. She's coming up, and boy, she's the only thing I can marvel at still is how she's in her 60s, but in many photos she looks like she's like 28.
Well, the money for the plastic surgery has to come from somewhere.
I was actually going to go the adrenochrome route, given that she's been responsible for delaying all these Epstein files and causing confusion, right? She must be participating in the sapping of the blood from the young in order to maintain those looks. So we have here Epstein Files fallout takes down elite figures in Europe while U.S. reckoning is muted, from NPR. The contrast is striking. In Europe, some people whose names come up in the Epstein files are facing consequences, but in the U.S., not so much. European royals, government officials, politicians, and others are losing jobs and titles over their connection to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. European law enforcement agencies are opening investigations based on recent troves of documents released by the U.S. government. Prominent Americans with apparent ties to Jeffrey Epstein, including President Trump and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, have so far largely kept their positions of power. Epstein also associated with Democratic politicians and academics, including former President Bill Clinton. While appearing in the Epstein files is not necessarily proof of wrongdoing, for Europeans, it's been very humiliating to see their rich and famous hobnobbing with Epstein, a fake American billionaire and convicted sex trafficker of minors, says Richard Painter, professor at the University of Minnesota Law School, who served as the chief ethics lawyer to President George W. Bush. But in the U.S., Painter says the connection between money and politics can shield some of those named in the files. You've got all this massive amount of money in politics, so the billionaire class is definitely going to want to be protected, he said. Neither the White House nor the Department of Commerce have responded to a request for comment. In the United Kingdom, former Prince Andrew was stripped of his royal titles and forced to move out of the royal estate. That was over claims that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as he is now known, had sex with teenage girls, which he has denied during his visits with Epstein. Now, with the latest release of files, the former prince faces an investigation by British police over claims he shared confidential trade information with Epstein in 2010. King Charles III, Mountbatten Windsor's brother, is ready to support investigators, Buckingham Palace said in a statement sent to news outlets this week. Others in the UK have faced consequences not for allegations of sexual misconduct, but for being too friendly with Epstein. Peter Mandelson, a prominent Labour Party figure and Britain's ambassador to the US, was stripped of his position in September and resigned from the House of Lords earlier this month. He now faces criminal investigation after new files suggest he received payments from Epstein and shared government documents. For a while, Prime Minister Keir Starmer faced calls to step down over his continued support for Mandelson. Starmer, earlier this month, apologized to Epstein's victims. "None of us knew the depth of darkness of that relationship," he said of Mandelson's ties to Epstein. In countries such as Britain, with a parliamentary system, leaders are more vulnerable to calls to resign from political opponents or even members of their own party, Painter noted, than leaders of the United States. Ultimately, the parliament, the legislature, calls the shots and then the members of the legislature are vulnerable to be voted down in the next election, he said. There's more accountability to the public. President Trump was a longtime friend of Epstein's and appears frequently in the released documents to the late financier's estate. Trump and the White House have both consistently denied any wrongdoing. Still, because he is in a second term and is constitutionally prohibited from running for re-election, he is shielded from some accountability, according to Painter. Lutnick, Trump's billionaire commerce secretary, previously said he had limited interactions with Epstein, a New York City neighbor, after visiting his townhouse in 2005. But this week, at a Senate hearing, he acknowledged that he and his family traveled to Epstein's private island in 2012. Painter also criticized Attorney General Pam Bondi for selectively releasing parts of the Epstein files, despite bipartisan legislation passed by Congress which orders full release of the documents. In her opening remarks at the contentious House Judiciary Committee hearing on Wednesday, Bondi said she was deeply sorry for what any victim had gone through, but she avoided apologizing directly to several of Epstein's victims in the committee room. Painter questioned whether the administration is releasing files that only implicate Democrats while shielding Republicans. Epstein knew Trump, a neighbor in Palm Beach, but Trump says they had a falling out before Epstein's conviction for sex trafficking. A few Americans have lost positions of power. Larry Summers, a former Treasury Secretary during the Clinton administration and chief economic advisor to President Obama, stepped away from his teaching position at Harvard. Brad Karp resigned as chair of the prestigious law firm Paul Weiss, and Catherine Rumler, top lawyer at Goldman Sachs, who we'll get to in a moment, announced that she'll resign from her job at the end of June. France's former culture minister, Jack Lang, resigned as head of Paris Cultural Center after French Foreign Ministry sought to question him about his ties to Epstein. Former Norwegian Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland this week was charged with gross corruption by police, where he could face up to 10 years in prison after emails showed he stayed in Epstein's homes in New York and Florida and visited Epstein's private island in the Caribbean. Also this month, Mona Juul resigned as Norway's ambassador to Jordan after revelations that Epstein left $10 million in his will to her children. The Epstein scandal has also hit the country's royal family. Norwegian Crown Prince Mette-Marit, the wife of Crown Prince Haakon, apologized after documents showed she vacationed in an Epstein property in Palm Beach. So, Alex, there's a nice long article from NPR talking about the international fallout of these documents. Have you learned about any of these individuals throughout the week that you want to bring attention to that I might not be aware of, or interesting?
The whole Mandelson thing is fascinating because Mandelson was previously, this is pre-Epstein, was known as the Prince of Darkness, okay, in the UK. Not exactly that, like nobody could have known. And he has been a mainstay of the Labour Party in the UK since the 80s. But always in a sort of vizier position, not frequently in a, like he hasn't become prime minister or anything. And Keir Starmer's whole thing now is about why he decided to appoint Mandelson as the U.S. ambassador. And I don't know if you covered it now, but the chief of staff, I think, of Starmer has resigned. Morgan McSweeney, I think is his name, who is also a Mandelson protege, right? A mentee of Mandelson's. But in his resignation, he said, "I regret that when asked for my advice, I concurred that he should be appointed," which in turn implies that he was not the one that brought it up. If you see what I mean, it's like I was asked, right? So he's basically kind of sticking the knife in his boss's back. Starmer, I think his favorability ratings are in like the 10s right now. So
Starmer. The last name is Starmer sounds like a guy that you would find out in the history books was one of the bad guys, right? Like that's not a name that exudes like right side of history. And that's unfortunately, stupidly biased, but I'm just saying, sure. Every time I hear Starmer, I imagine that he's going to be in the histoy books as having committed some atrocity.
The thing is, the fact of the matter is that Starmer is unpopular for many reasons. I think his nickname in the UK is Never Hear Keir because he is focused 100% on foreign policy, Ukraine, Davos, whatever, and making alliances with Macron, reversing Brexit, whatever, but like nothing about like domestic issues in the UK. Like he's constantly just traveling and dealing with that.
Is it just me, or have we been through like 18 prime ministers in the last 5 years?
You are correct. Somebody actually counted and they said, I think they've had like 7 prime ministers in the last 10 years or something. It's something stupid.
I feel like they haven't been around for very long. I haven't seen them around long enough to even build an opinion. There's so many.
We could probably count them, from you got Boris, you got Liz Truss, you got...
I forgot about her. Yeah.
Well, she was only there for what, like a couple months?
Oh, the head of lettuce. Yes. That felt so recent.
Then there was the Indian guy. What's his name?
Rishi Sunak. Yeah.
Rishi Sunak, and he's apparently the most long-lasting one. He did like a year and a half or something.
Oh, really?
And then Keir Starmer now, and I guess before that you had David Cameron. So between all these people, and I'm sure
there was another lady too. Who was the?
Yes. What's her name? Oh my God, she was like a Thatcher 2.0, but not quite. My God.
Liz? No, she wasn't Liz.
No. Anyway, but long story short, it's definitely feeling like, a banana republic at this point, and not.
Yeah, I mean, the rate of prime ministers at this rate will have, a prime minister every 2 days in the next.
Well, yeah. According to that NPR
in the future,
article,
everybody will be a prime minister for 15 minutes.
Oh, there you go.
They're held more accountable over there. Its problem is they're all also guilty, apparently, which means that you just rotate them every few days.
What's insane? You look at the people who are slated to follow, and they're all terrible, right? It's like, how can you not? You're an entire country.
Where do these people come from? Right? Yeah, like where do they get these people?
Well, I've been having a philosophical thing with myself the last few days where I've just been thinking, every time you look at somebody in a role, right, prime minister or even doctor or even whatever, right, one thing is like, we tend to just relate with the person, and you're like, oh, he seems like a good guy, he seems like a bad guy, whatever. But really, what you're looking at is the endpoint of a funnel, right? Like, that rejected a bunch of people, right? Like, if you have a doctor that like gets really involved with their cases, right, they're not going to be a good doctor, because they just, like, you can't just like be mourning every patient that dies. Like, it doesn't work, right? So you have to have some degree of detachment to be, a half decent doctor, for example. So you might not realize that just by looking at a doctor. You say like, oh yeah, he looks like pretty empathetic. All I'm saying is, like, yes, it does seem that whatever is leading the political pipeline in the UK right now is, I mean, honestly, the US is not doing much better. It's arguably worse. I mean, the whole Pam Bondi hearing that we're getting to, it's just like, how did we end up here? Like, how is this?
It's also shocking that we're still talking about Kamala Harris being a potential runner-up in the next election. Is quite frankly shocking. I don't know how this happens, but it'll be amusing.
What's that number of friends that you can maintain? There's that number. It's not Dunbar's number, is it? It's Dunbar's number? Okay. Well, what if that extends to the number of names that you can just relatively keep track of in the world, and therefore when we've had enough people on TV at some point, we can't think of any new people, and so we have to rotate these people because we can't fit any more names into our brain that to consider.
Or it's all just a simulation and there's only really that many people, and everybody else there just aren't that many people.
It's the dead internet theory, but for the world.
They can't write that many characters,
That's right.
Yes. They'll the scripts.
It's
will
just
run
like
out
how
and
if you
they'll
asked an LLM for a story now, every character will be named Dr. Elena Voss, just inexplicably.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to some more Uncle Jeffy news here.
I'm not acting like I read 3.5 million documents. Just based on what I've read so far, I actually owe a lot of the conspiracy theorists I know an apology. GIB, it's very hard for me when it comes to the everything's connected people, because not everything feels connected. You'll have people who are like, it's all connected. It's all connected, all right? All of it. Jean Benet, 9/11, and the tiger that went missing at the zoo. It's all connected.
Who had the most contact with Jeffrey Epstein during his final decade? At The Economist, we have analyzed 1.4 million of Jeffrey Epstein's emails. We found the 500 figures who appear most often and analyzed their relationships with the sex offender, building a picture of the people in consistent contact with Epstein after he pled guilty to soliciting sex from a minor. This is a list of some of the most well-known figures that appear in Epstein's emails. David Stern, an aide to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Larry Summers, the former U.S. Treasury Secretary, and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's associate who's been convicted of sex trafficking minors, were all in consistent contact with Epstein. Our data shows that some people were emailing with Epstein hundreds of times a month, like the physicist Lawrence Krauss and the banker Ariane de Rothschild. To understand just how much Epstein's network reached into almost every area of society, we've also divided the top 500 people by their industry. If you exclude Epstein's emails with his staff and business partners, 19% of messages with his top correspondents were with financiers, like Jess Staley, the former CEO of Barclays. 17% were in academia, like the immunologist Boris Nikolic. There were politicians like Peter Mandelson, Britain's former ambassador to the US, and Ehud Barak, Israel's former prime minister. And people from media and entertainment, including the publicist Peggy Siegel, the journalist Michael Wolff, and the filmmaker Woody Allen. The list also contains at least 18 current or former billionaires, including Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. All of them were in touch with Epstein after his plea admitting to sex offenses in 2008. Most of Epstein's correspondents say they didn't know about the scale of his crimes. In such a vast data dump, the quantity of emails alone doesn't give you the full picture of the nature of their relationships. So we mapped the number of emails sent and received. Ariane de Rothschild sent many more emails to Epstein than she received. Lawrence Krauss and Epstein sent similar numbers of emails to each other. Some people received far more emails than they sent, like Bill Gates, who was bombarded by messages between 2014 and 2016 and replied to relatively few. He was, however, happy to meet Epstein in person on a number of occasions. This analysis gives you an insight into Epstein's relationships and network after his plea deal. But many emails also detail the ongoing abuse of women and girls. We also used a large language model to score every message on how disturbing it is. And buried among 1 million mundane missives are over 1,000 that are LLM flagged as highly worrisome. Watch our next video for more analysis of Epstein's network.
That's what we need now, Alex, is does this activity concern your LLM? Does it give your LLM the heebie-jeebies?
I am amazed at how AI has permeated the content I hear. It's insane how much it comes up as a background thing, not as a like the stories about LLMs, but mostly like, oh, let me quickly check with Grok or whatever. But this particular one sounds like a good use in that, at 3 million pieces of text, like you're going to need some sort of, mass weapon. And I bet those, 3,000, 1,000 emails are
non-numerical sentiment analysis is definitely a reasonable thing to churn through an LLM at high speed, right? Like, hey, pick stuff out that seems fits this criteria, and it can do that pretty well, right? That's a reasonable thing to.
What I still haven't figured out, and I mean, I guess I haven't spent a lot of time digging into it, but is how they got the actual archive itself, because I have not found a download link per se.
Yeah, but you also don't want to, you're also afraid to go to jail, you said, because you don't want to actually just script it. So you haven't asked your LLM buddies to go and make it for you. You're telling people that they can archive their own Nest cameras, but you won't just go and make it mass download the Epstein files for you.
Are you thinking The Economist went and wrote a bot to download them one by one?
They probably did, or used someone who did. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to go to jail, Alex. I don't think you're going to go to jail for doing it. But anyway. We have a lot more Epstein news to go through.
By the way, I just sent you something that was a fascinating thing. I haven't confirmed it, of course, because that would defeat the point. But apparently somebody did a similar thing where they mapped the emails to the dates, and apparently the big gap in emails available are between 1999 and 2001.
Okay.
So like there's emails from like 98 and maybe early 99, I don't know. And then from 02 and later. But from 99 to 01, there's like a black hole.
I see.
Make of it what you will.
Perhaps. Well, you know, the stack of Epstein stuff to go through is still so high. I actually was, wondering if you would join me in the call to unrelease the Epstein Files, perhaps. If we can get that started, because we're never going to wind up talking about anything else if this keeps going at this rate.
I've taken to, I don't know if I said this earlier. I don't think I have. I've taken to listening now to podcasts from like all over the ideological spectrum that talk about Epstein, because they all talk about different stories and they're all pretty like solid. And because every little filter bubble is following its own obsessions about the stuff that they care about. And there's so much stuff in there that I literally just go to YouTube and just search for random podcasts talking about Epstein, maybe sorted by views. And you'll see lefties and righties and just like a random irrelevant stuff and whatever talking about Epstein. And more often than not, it's some really important story that they're talking about that you've never heard of before.
Yeah, well, do you recall, Alex, in our Pizzagate special that we talked about the Belgian X-Files? That was basically a
yes, I do.
Okay, all right. Well, to summarize what that was for people who have not yet listened to our Pizzagate coverage, that was a scandal in Belgium that involved allegations of the elite engaged in child sex trafficking and blackmail behavior. And there have been, as of recent, women who have claimed to have been survivors of that scandal, going on different podcasts and telling aspects of the story that start naming names that are also, obviously tied in with Uncle Jeffy here. So we might have to do a follow up to the Pizzagate, story via the Belgian X-Files to weave those webs together and, I guess for the rest of our lives, dedicate it to figuring out this one pedophile's sordid life.
It's just that, I think this won't be the last such trove that we'll get. I think that the something files concept, it started with the Twitter files, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it's just going to be a thing now that's going to be happening more and more, both because there just exist these massive troves, and because now we have a proof of concept that let me put it differently. Let's face it, right? If a law enforcement agency has a trove of 3 million documents, how much are they going to be able to extract from them? You see what I mean? Well, how much digging are they expected to do?
At least they could figure out whether or not there was a torture video.
Yeah. Well, did you? We haven't covered your friend being resigning from his position, have we?
Which friend resigning from which position?
The DP World CEO.
We did. We mentioned it last week, yeah, or Wednesday during the middle ground, because his name was released in between, and we discussed it. And I don't recall if he had officially stepped down yet, but we had talked about him being.
He had not. I think it's new. Member. I think it's new since then.
All right. Well, here's the next story here, and if you want to pull up the story of Sullivan leaving DP World, you grab that for me. Ohio State investigating gynecologist named in Epstein Files. This is from NBC News. A gynecologist at Ohio State University, whose name appeared in the Epstein Files as having received thousands of dollars in payments from the convicted sex offender for consulting work, is being investigated by the university, an official there confirmed Friday. Dr. Mark Landon is cooperating with the investigation, Serena Smith, a spokesman for OSU's Wexner Medical Center, said in an email. Landon has stated he has no knowledge of any criminal activities and his consulting work did not involve any patient care. We continue to review the situation and have received no information to date that contradicts Mr. Landon's statements. Landon, who chairs OSU's Department of Obstetrics. Okay, sorry, I don't usually pronounce that word. I apologize for my stupidity. And gynecology, and specializes in high-risk pregnancies, released a statement on Monday after his name was found in the files. I did not provide any clinical care for Jeffrey Epstein or any of his victims. It said I was a paid consultant for the New York Strategy Group regarding potential biotech investments from 2001 to 2005. I had no knowledge of any criminal activities. I find them reprehensible and feel terrible for Epstein's victims. The New York Strategy Group was Epstein's money management firm, records show. Landon's consulting work for Epstein's firm was before the financier was branded a registered sex offender in 2008, following a conviction in Florida for procuring a child for prostitution and soliciting a prostitute. In the files, the doctor's name appears in a 2006 email written to Epstein by Darren Indicki, an attorney who worked for him. Are we still paying Mark Landon? It began. Indicki wrote that Landon's agreement requires quarterly payments of $30K to be made to Landon on the 15th of January, April, July, and October. The previous payments made to Landon was for $25,000 and not $30,000. The contract is terminable at will on 15 days prior notice. Is NYSG to make payment to Landon by January 15th? And if so, for $25K or $30K, please advise. $75 per year, Epstein responded. The email did not specify what work Landon was paid for. There are also multiple FedEx receipts in the files for packages sent to Landon at the Wexner Medical Center between 2001 and 2004. They do not indicate what was sent in the packages. NBC News reached out to Indicki for comment. So, Alex, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the angle with those payments. Now, I tagged you yesterday in something. I had promised that I was going to go through what the Free Press had accumulated of videos that were sporadically throughout the archive. They gathered many, many hours worth of videos, and I went through them. A lot of them were supposedly self-taken either by Epstein or people that he was sleeping with, or prostitutes he was paying, or things like that, filming themselves engaging in sexual activity, and majority of it was blacked out. But there was one video that appeared to have been Epstein filming females dancing in one of his offices, and I was able to catch that there was a DNA paternity test kit that was on his desk. And if you recall, one of the angles that we were following was a 2019 New York Times report where one of the things that he apparently was talking about to all of these academics that he was courting regularly was his desire to turn his New Mexico ranch into basically a farm where he would impregnate a massive amount of I guess, genetically qualified women to have his children, and that this was just his idea, that that's what he wanted to do, was father a significantly large sort of Genghis Khan number of women, or maybe he was in a personal competition with Elon Musk to see who could have the most offspring or something, as sort of a gentleman's bet. And this DNA test was just sitting on his desk there, and I'm starting to wonder if Alex follow me on this idea here. So we know that he systematically sought out girls who were questionably of age. So we're talking about they might have been 18, some of them, but he was constantly dabbling in the teenage zone, right? Teenagers, so they might be 17, 16, and supposedly, according to the stories, one girl who was 15 was involved, and she had been coached to lie about her age in order to participate. Whether or not the coaching to lie came from Ghislaine or not, I'm not sure. But clearly he was dabbling.
We all have an email of him coaching a 14-year-old to say she's 22. So
I wouldn't doubt it. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to follow the chains that I know. I only like to. I like to say what's speculation and say what I know. And I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. But what if the massage?
Yeah, let me read it because I found it. It says you're going to be 22, not 14 years old. I'll send you the thing to attach. But apparently, it's So
what if
because I mentioned this because sometimes people try to use that as an excuse for Epstein to say, oh no, the girls were lying about their age and he couldn't have known or whatever. And it's an important piece of information to say that he himself had been involved in telling girls to lie about their age. So
I would not. That does not surprise me. That does not surprise me. It's just up until this moment, I did not have the knowledge that some piece of evidence existed that corroborated the idea. But follow me on this. What if the massage table act was a filtering process where you're preying on these women and seeing which ones are willing to engage in the activity in exchange for money? From that subset, you do your perverted genetic review of them, and then you further isolate them and put them in dangerous situations or questionable situations, similar to the way that pimps take advantage of the hookers underneath of them. And from there, you sub-select all of these using this as a massive filtration system. You sub-select those to engage in your experiment in the New Mexico ranch for impregnation. And that some of these payments that are going out to women are either for helping procure victims for this sort of activity, or are women who he impregnated himself and was giving money sort of as a, paternity sort of payment, right? Like to try to make sure that his offspring had finances.
Well, that's where it becomes fishy that he leaves, tens of millions of dollars to children of a certain woman or something. Right. Which is like, but look, again, this is where this trove is fascinating because you get a sense of what he's doing. And, I wouldn't be surprised if there's little to no explicit blackmail. But what you see a lot of is what you described here, at least a general pattern, where you have people that are essentially sort of an escalating set of, concentric circles. Right, where you get somebody in for X, and then you do Y, and then depending on how they react, you put them in a different category, and you whatever. And by the way, this is something we should mention. A lot of people say Chomsky didn't really do anything with him. He was just going out for dinners or whatever. Well, look. So my wife has tracked the entire Elon Epstein saga. Which is fascinating, and I do hope she writes about it. But one thing you see is that Epstein was chasing Elon to meet, extremely pressingly, again and again and again and again, and putting out different pieces of cheese. And some of them are, oh, do you want to come have dinner with Woody Allen and me, or Chomsky and me? I don't remember if Chomsky was used, but some of these big name sort of, quote unquote friends that he had are there to operate as, the entry ramp to Epstein world. And then you get, qualified and pulled into the deeper, darker recesses. So, I don't think anything that he did was unconnected.
Mm-hmm. But do you think my idea has gravity, like that the possibly this massage thing was a precursor to a filtration system where he was sub-selecting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you see about the massage thing, right? What he did was he would pay the girls like, I don't know, $200, and I guess that helps him in multiple ways. One of them is that the girls are then technically prostitutes. But for some of them, he'd say, bring me your friends, because I don't know if you've been to high school, but probably the girls that are like a little bit more promiscuous have friends who are a little bit more promiscuous, right? Mm-hmm. And so, they could probably tell their friend, like, if you want to make $200, there's a quick way to do it or something. But yes, he was consuming, quote unquote, so many girls like a day at some points that you could totally see this as a funnel, effectively, right? In a software as a service world, we have these things called funnel conversion metrics. I believe. Sorry, it's really funny. Chamath, right? He had, Chamath Palihapitiya, the name.
No, that doesn't strike me at the moment.
He's one of the hosts of the All In podcast. But before he did that, it was a big deal in growth hacking world, and he had put together, I believe it's him, the R framework, AARRR, and I think the motto was like grow like a pirate. But you have acquisition, activation, retention, referral, revenue. But that's kind of your typical sort of software as a service funnel, right? Where you first you get somebody's attention, then you get them to like stick with your product, then you get them to upgrade to like some sort of paid plan, and then you get.
It's also somewhat of a multi-level marketing / cult dynamic.
All sorts of things that have this sort of structure where you have a lot of people at the top, and you end up with a very small subset at the bottom that are the most sort of, I don't know, extreme case of what you are looking for, I suppose. Right. But I have no doubt that yes, like this was a funnel. Now, whether one end of that funnel was New Mexico, I mean, how else would you do it?
Yeah. What was you'd need some screening process, right? Like that would.
Yeah.
And now,
and by the way, this is another of these ridiculous arguments that Michael Tracy trots out every once in a while, which is like, well, they're just doing massages, like, that's all you have or whatever. And it's like, no, this is how it works. Like you break one boundary, and then you break another boundary, and then you push a little bit more, and then you qualify a little bit further, and you keep going.
Well, if you haven't caught our last two episodes, which was one last Sunday and one midweek, there was a story that came out from these dumps that involved so as far as I can tell, this is verified, so this isn't speculation, that there is a diary of some woman who was claiming, contemporaneously, supposedly written, saying that she was giving birth to his kid, and that she didn't want to be connected to him that way, that the kid was taken from her right after she gave birth to it, and that it was that she had been basically held captive at the New Mexico ranch, because that's where this diary was obtained from. And my desire as I go through these stories is, one, not to necessarily completely discount some of the more outrageous ideas, but also not to give them undue credence, but to try to keep an open mind about what the possible information I'm being, let's call it fed, means, and trying to be discerning about it to find the best I can what is able to be discerned by stuff that everyone can agree is real. And the New Mexico ranch being a place where he intended to impregnate a large number of women to spread his DNA at a massive scale is something that the New York Times in 2019 reported itself as what he was telling the academics he was spending time with was his goal. So at that base level, the fact that these academics that are associated with him are reporting that he was going on and on about wanting to do this, and asking all sorts of DNA related questions, and wanted to create some sort of master race involving his own DNA, using this farm as sort of a place where he would mass impregnate women. Do I know for sure that he pulled that off? I have absolutely no idea, and I have no way of knowing or gathering that information myself. But I have the New York Times telling me that that's what he was telling people he wanted to do back in 2019. So we are disconnected from these dumps and the internet's wild hallucinations about what certain sentences might mean. We're disconnected from that. We have, as close to the man in his own words as we can get at this moment, which is what many academics were saying he was talking about. We have the New York Times, so we get to, bank off of their authenticity, which is, a sketchy thing to do. But at least if the story is bullshit, they're the ones on the hook, not me, for believing it. So, this stuff that I'm sort of focusing on, I'm attempting to do my best to make something coherent out of the things that were given. And to me, that's the most coherent thing I can come up with at the moment about what his general activity was, particularly through Ghislaine and the abuse that he was inflicting on young women who were in poor situations. So women who were, young girls, teenagers who came from a broken home, possibly abusive homes, possibly women who were sexually molested already, and therefore having social issues in their age range, and was using that as part of this recruitment system to use the massages as an intro level precursor to further filter out women who are possible candidates for his impregnation scheme in New Mexico. Because if that's something he had as a legitimate plan, that's one way you would go about it if you were already engaging in this untoward activity. So that's what I'm attempting to do with with this information that I'm given.
I would say there are two modes of reasoning that I think everybody engages in to one degree or another. And one is you sort of, when you see something, I guess it would be reasoning by analogy, where you classify it on the basis of what other things you have heard of like this, and whether those things are true or not, right? Like, does this sound crazy, basically, is the filter. And the other way is to work from first principles, where you literally just take the facts and connect them and say, well, this is true, and then we know that is true, and if both of these things are true, then this third thing is true, and whatever, and you reach your conclusion regardless of how insane the conclusion would, right, quote unquote sound to a reasoner by analogy. You're like, well, I get it, but show me where the mistake is, because I think I've done some pretty conservative thinking here, and we end up with something that, yes, does sound a little bit off distribution, but what would you have me do? And I think this podcast is we're very firmly in column B, and are attempting to do our best at doing the reasoning, because the fact of the matter is, when you go off the beaten path, you are very liable to just go off, and just lose track, right? And that is the problem, right? When you are engaging in, sort of first principles thinking, you can end up wherever with, a couple of simple errors. So this is kind of what I think we're trying to do, which is to take the most insane things seriously, but also do that kind of reasoning seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that the best, to the degree that we're providing any useful information, that we're giving people something solid to land on, that at least is, we'll call it satisfying in a morbid sort of way, meaning that it's satisfyingly explanatory of the untoward behavior that we are pretty sure that this guy was engaged in, without requiring someone to go off of strong leaps where you have to try to convince people through just the forcefulness of your expressions, because a lot of the stuff that is, let's say, less tangibly provable, the things that involve the code words of pizza and grape soda and jerky, all those other things, I'm not telling you they're not true, but they're less solid of angles to work with. And this ranch, this New Mexico ranch thing seems to be one of the most solid things out of this whole dump that that you can take away from it about something that is sort of systematic and mass scale that, by his own words, he desired to do. Right? I think that's a nice place to hang your hat on, right?
Yep. We the thing is, like, another sort of reasoning method is to have patience, right? Because sometimes you will get up to a point and reach what appears to be a dead end. And the temptation when this happens is to make a leap. But that leap then commits you to some assumptions that were maybe not justified at the time, but then you kind of you integrate them with your identity, and then you have to admit you're wrong, and yada yada, and it's a problem. But I think what I try to do, and I think you're good at it too, is be patient, right? Just sort of say, like, look, this is as far as we can go right now, and tomorrow there might be some other thing that gets released, or maybe it'll be 10 years. And when that happens, I don't want to have committed myself to some other version of events that was not supported.
Yeah, and I don't want to make the error in either direction of telling people that they're insane for connecting some dots that I might not be ready to really double down on. But I also don't want to, give credence too much to the most outrageous stuff when there isn't enough to work with. I want to mention them, to say, hey, look, this is what some people are thinking, because if I don't know conclusively one way or another, I'm not going to necessarily rule it out entirely. Now, this is a fun story before we continue more on some of the Uncle Jeffy stuff that maybe is less thrilling to go with, but this is one fun story, I think. Pokemon Go players found something disturbing on Epstein Island, and Epstein himself sent emails about the game from Yahoo, which was reposting from Mediaite. Savvy players of Pokemon Go, the mobile game that lets players catch digital creatures at real-world locations all over the globe, spotted one of the app's Pokestops in a disturbing location, Epstein Island. And among the released Epstein Files is an odd email from 2016 sent by Jeffrey Epstein himself referencing the game. The game, developed and released by San Francisco-based software company Niantic, uses GPS technology to overlay a virtual reality map over the real world, with geographical features like lakes, rivers, and roads appearing in the game. Players search for, catch, and battle the Pokemon creatures, as well as collecting items in various ways, including at Pokestops that are scattered throughout the map, marked with a photograph and label of that location. Often, Pokestops are established at public landmarks like a park bench or ice cream shop. Many were set up by the programmers in a partnership with companies that paid a sponsorship fee. Starbucks was an early collaborator that actively sought to have Pokestops established at its stores across the U.S. Players can submit suggested Pokestops too after they reach a certain level using Niantic's online portal within the mobile app. Recently, photos were widely shared on Reddit and social media platforms of a Pokestop on Little St. James, aka Epstein Island. The island in the U.S. Virgin Islands that was privately owned by Epstein and was allegedly used as a base of operations for his child sex trafficking and other crimes. A report by Sarah Heritage at Gaming Bible noted that some Pokemon Go players had been spoofing their location, a violation of Niantic's terms of service that risks the user's account being banned, but an enduring hobby for some nonetheless, and had noticed the Pokestop on an outdoor sundial on Epstein Island. Older Reddit threads had reported the Epstein Island Pokestop about a year ago, but the DOJ's ongoing release of the Epstein Files renewed interest in the deceased child sex predator, and the photos and posts about the Epstein Island Pokestop circulated again since again during the past few days. Several users have claimed this Pokestop was known about since 2021, but Mediaite was unable to verify that. As Heritage pointed out, the game's guidelines for submitting Pokestops require them to have safe pedestrian access, and this has been a restricted private island for years. After Epstein's death, ownership was passed to a trust, and the property was sold to billionaire investor Stephen Dekoff in 2023. It likely violates those rules. So, Alex, if you have Pokemon Go, you might still be able to find a Pokestop on Uncle Jeffy's island.
In the spirit of being robust, do we have any proof that anybody was turned away from Epstein Island? Because,
only recently there were some people turned away from Epstein Island. Yes.
So maybe at the time it was technically publicly accessible.
Kids welcome. I love kids.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. The worst possible way.
Now, let me see which order I want to do this. Okay. So Alex, you and I had just talked at length about attempting to be careful with information, this voluminous amount of information, give ourselves the flexibility to go down threads that we might otherwise really desire to not be true, but if they wind up being true, we allow ourselves the ability to go down them. But some of our betters in Congress are doing the Lord's work for us and going ahead and just asserting things are true, much to Michael Tracy's chagrin. And so now we have Jamie Raskin going on and basically just saying that it was a massive international sex trafficking ring that Jeffrey Epstein was running. So it wasn't localized to just Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell as a personal sort of endeavor. It is now an international sex ring that he was running, that Jamie Raskin is purporting. So Jamie Raskin appeared on a channel called Legal Eagle on YouTube. And now Legal Eagle recently has become a very, very entrenched hotbed of Democratic propaganda. So it has not been, let's say, very fair and open-minded when it comes to evaluating recent news stories. Its angle is very much anti-administration and pro-Democrat propaganda. But given that Jamie Raskin was doing the discussion on here, I find it worthwhile to play some clips of what he was saying about this recent release and Pam Bondi.
Wanted to frame it yesterday to expose her for being on the side of the perpetrators and against the victims, and the whole world could see it. I mean, she literally would not apologize to the survivors of the Epstein violent international child sex trafficking ring. She would not accept my challenge to create a federal, state, local task force to follow through on these 6 million documents demonstrating all manner of criminality and abuse of children and trafficking. She doesn't want to do anything unless it fits Donald Trump's political agenda. She became very animated and passionate and focused when she was talking about the Don Lemon case. It was really interesting. She knew everything about it. She spoke with intensity about the whole thing and what they were going to do. And then with more than 1,000 victims of Epstein, it was all completely bureaucratic, cold indifference.
I mean, I am sympathetic to criticisms of the Department of Justice and AG Bondi in this context. That being said, there are 6 million documents to go through, some of which, theoretically, half of them have been released so far. And she has had tenure as the Attorney General for about a year. Can she be expected to provide all of the documents at this point?
Should she be expected to comply with the law? I would think so. I mean, the law compelled her to do it several months ago. She has more than 100,000 employees. But look, here's the big picture. Pam Bondi, it's very clear to me, especially after yesterday, is just part of a systemic cover-up of what was taking place, and Donald Trump is central to it. And all of this is coming from the top. There are certain very specific facts, certain very specific crimes that Donald Trump doesn't want people to know about. And so it's all about burying those needles in the haystack and making the process as confusing and as belabored and convoluted as possible. And that became clear at the end of the day yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, but it turned out that they set up these 4 computers in a DOJ annex for us to go over and look at. They were basically spying on us as we were using their computer program. They were following all the breadcrumbs of where we were going so they would know what we were looking at. And that was discovered yesterday when a photographer took a picture of Pam Bondi's burn book, all the insults that she'd compiled for each of members of the committee to distract from the business of the day. And at the top of the page for Pramila Jayapal, it said Pramila Jayapal's research history. And then it was all of the searches she'd engaged in when she went over there. Many of us had suspected that this was going on, and it's obvious it is. And they do consider this a game, and they're just playing hide and go seek. It's cat and mouse. They're not interested in vindicating the rights of the survivors. And that's where we need a breakthrough in terms of the process here so we can get back at what the whole purpose of the federal law is.
Yeah, I mean, you read my mind. That was one of the first things I wanted to talk about was this. I consider this to be somewhat of a bombshell that the Department of Justice was tracking what the members of Congress were looking at when they were given access to the unredacted documents. I want to talk about those unredacted documents, but first I want to talk about this tracking and potential spying. Does that violate any kind of statute or right of privacy? In my mind, at the very least, it would seem to be a violation of separation of powers or the speech and debate clause.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I talked about yesterday when I saw it. I mean, we did stupidly or not just accept the fact that we had to go over to DOJ and we had to use their computers and none of us had a password and none of us had an ID and so on. I mean, all of us were remarking upon the weirdness of the whole procedure, but we're very eager to get to look at the documents, but it's very clear that it was set up in such a way to allow them to monitor us. And so we're not going to accept that anymore. And we're going to need a complete reset on the procedure of this thing. It's not a game. And when Bondi says, oh, well, we've released more files than anybody else, that's a federal law compelling you to do that. And you didn't release another 3 million. And that's part of the law too. You got to release all of it. And the only thing you can redact is the name of the victims. And you failed at that.
Okay, Alex, now, as I was saying, Jamie Raskin just goes out there and says that there was a violent international sex trafficking ring that Epstein was fronting. So I guess that's canon now, right? That's just it.
Here's the thing. What we do know is that Lex Wexner was named as to be investigated as a co-conspirator in child sex trafficking, not in sex trafficking in general.
I wish we had less Wexner. We've had far too much Wexner recently. I think if we can actually have less, that would be.
Sorry. Oh. No, it's gonna be more Wexner. Actually, I'm afraid.
Yes. Exactly.
So at this point. The thing that drives Tracy off the wall, the international child sex trafficking ring. Well, you have the international down pat. I mean, you can go and read the emails where he's talking to his scouts and paying for them to walk the streets in various cities. Okay. Yeah. We have a child sex trafficking thing with more people than just himself because we have all these co-conspirators that the FBI somehow did not continue the investigation of. And the law was obliging them to release the decision for why they chose not to. And you'll be shocked to hear they did not release that. And so, the ring, I mean, already 2 people is sufficient, but no, you actually have another 6, I believe, that their names were released or whatever. There might have been more names. But so, all the ingredients are there and connected in the right way. I don't know what exactly Tracy would be challenging at this point. But how big it was, I guess you could say it was like a small international child sex trafficking ring. But I don't know how exactly you challenge any
I think that at best, Michael Tracy has the ability to make a distinction between the eyes wide shut sort of massive sex trafficking cartel idea where all of these people that were rich, famous, and powerful that Epstein was corresponding with were participating in the activity, or if the network that Epstein was having to procure these women was mostly for private use. Right. I think if Tracy still has some sort of angle he might hope to retain, it's that one.
None of that sort of goes against the definition of international child sex trafficking, right? Yeah, I don't. You have a fairly limited number of Johns, so to speak. You could still have that be that, which Tracy sort of protests. He even has started saying victims with quotes in it, man. Like, I don't know what to say at this point. Like, I seriously, like, this is one of the big mysteries for me of this whole case. Like, what is going on in Tracy's mind? Because honestly, like, there is a way to do what he is doing, the good part of it, right? I think we talked about this last time. But step number one is that you grant the stuff that is consensus and easy to grant, that some victims exist, even if you question how many, that, Epstein was involved in, quite some nasty activity. If you hear Tracy tell it, Epstein, was a victim of the girls. I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, look, he's just a victim of unfortunate circumstances. Whenever the doctors gave him hormone replacement therapy because he had low testosterone ratings, that just made him more sexually aggressive, and it really wasn't his fault.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really just an unfortunate story of Big Pharma.
Well, we got a little bit more to go here, and I'm hoping we can get to some traces of AI dystopia here. And of course, we still have a lot more material to go on the cutting room floor for this week, but we have a little bit more here from the Epstein story. I have these clips to show how well Pam Bondi was addressing Congress when it came to the Epstein Files this week. This was Pam Bondi's defense of the administration's handling of the Epstein situation.
They are talking about Epstein today. This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million, and Donald Trump signed that law to release all of those documents. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. And none of them ask Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan.
The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has done it in 1 year. National median rents have fallen to a 4-year low thanks to Donald Trump. That's why they want to focus on Epstein and our most transparent president in the nation's history. The murder rate, as I said, has plummeted to a 125-year low, thanks to Donald Trump. For an unprecedented 9 straight months, there were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border.
So yeah, that's the defense of the department's handling of the Epstein release. The Dow is up, and that's why
we want the Department of War there. Is that an acronym or?
No. It's the Dow Industrial Average, Alex. That is you might not be familiar with it. It is a finance term.
Oh, I see. Yes. One of my favorite memes about this. You remember the movie A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson?
I do. Yes.
One of my favorite memes about this was, Tom Cruise saying, "Did you order the code red?" And the general responding, "The Dow is over 50,000."
Now, look. I'm not going to pretend that the Democrats are, acting all in perfectly good faith and are, above the accusation of being opportunistic. But let's be clear here.
This is what it's for. This is how it's supposed to work. The adversarial system. This is
let's be clear here.
Founders intended, man.
Let's be clear here. There is an organic behavior of their constituency demanding that the Democrats talk about this right now, because the internet has been absolutely going insane since the dump. Okay, there is a very organic thing occurring.
Look, your 401k is doing great. So what about the occasional, what is this objection to the occasional child sacrifice? It's like, what are we? It is so bad, and this woman had it scripted, right? When she said the Dow is smashing records, she's clearly reading from something that was written before. So this was not even in the heat of the moment. Somebody sat down and thought this is a good idea
if you were going to do that,
Karen Donald Trump or something there.
If you were going to do that, you would say, look, we have followed the law, released everything that we can release as fast as we can release it. If there were errors in redactions, that of course we will get those corrected, because they were accidents, they were not intentional bad redactions, and we will work with Congress to make sure that we get every single document provided in a way that follows the law and follows the intent of the law. But right now, this media circus is all about trying to focus attention away from the successes and blah, blah, blah. Like that, you have to string the concepts together, okay? Because you actually have to have a sequitur. You just can't start talking about the Dow.
I seriously think this and this is another thing, right? Like, let's just say that indeed Epstein was like just some guy or whatever. It's like, okay, so please do explain, why is the administration immolating this right now? Like, why is this? Why do we observe what is your hypothesis here? Like, why do we observe what we observe? Like, it's like, no, there's clearly something going on. Because seriously, this speech is going to go down in history. I mean, there's no way that doesn't become a thing we refer to decades later. So why are they doing it to themselves?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, because this is going back to the Democrats, right? Who are, I'm saying, they're not all being innocent in this, and I'm not going to pretend that they're being genuine about their concerns. But was it Stacey Plaskett who was texting Epstein during one of the hearings?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was the same person, because the Free Beacon here has a report. Democrat Stacey Plaskett pressed Jeffrey Epstein to fund project that would allow her to completely outperform opposition. Democratic Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett beseeched Jeffrey Epstein for help funding a new voter file that would allow her to completely outperform anyone in any race. Using the email handle Leroy Daughter, Plaskett pitched Epstein on the idea in an email on May 5th, 2017, according to documents released by the Department of Justice. In the pitch, Plaskett asked Epstein to fund a one-year project to create a new voter file of Virgin Islands voters. The goal, according to Plaskett, was to compile data on Virgin Islanders who had voted in recent elections and update their phone numbers, email addresses, and home addresses to help Plaskett's campaign and those of her allies in other races. Quote, "This is the most important group to poll for messaging and later phone banking for support and get to the polls," wrote Plaskett, adding that the list would help candidates decide what political positions to take and assist messaging and campaign work. "This project would allow us to completely outperform anyone in any race," wrote Plaskett. "Jeffrey would really appreciate your support in the project and thoughts on our home and national scene." It is unclear why Plaskett used an alternative email account in the exchange with Epstein. The pseudonymous account, which appears to be a reference to Plaskett's father, Leroy Plaskett, is copied in a July 11th to 2018 email in which Plaskett invited Epstein to a campaign fundraiser in New York City. The email adds to an existing pile of evidence that Plaskett was far closer to Epstein, both personally and politically, than she has conceded publicly. In November, Plaskett defended revelations that she exchanged text messages with Epstein during a February 2019 congressional hearing, describing the exchange as correspondence with a constituent who had sent her unsolicited messages. She denied that she had a friendship with Epstein, who was convicted in 2008 of soliciting a minor for prostitution. And yet, in a text message on September 24th, 2018, Plaskett asked Epstein if it would be presumptuous for her to consider Epstein a friend, at the Washington Free Beacon reported. "Privileged to be called friend," Epstein replied. In her pitch to Epstein, Plaskett said she was working on the voter data project with James McGee, a longtime political consultant to Epstein. "I'd like to launch by the next month and would appreciate your partnership to make this happen," wrote Plaskett, who also said she would be meeting later that month with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. McGee, whose consulting firm is based in Boston, wrote to Epstein about the Plaskett initiative on May 2nd, 2017, saying it had two very important purposes that would help their political influence in the U.S. territory. Quote, "To protect, reinforce, and continue to build upon Stacey's currently very strong political position and the high favorability ratings she currently has ahead of next year," wrote McGee. "I can tell you the end result of this project is a model mechanism that puts us, Stacey, and a potential candidate at a tremendous advantage over the field. I know Stacey appreciates it," said McGee. McGee, who was paid $15,000 a month by Epstein, according to a contract included in the Epstein Files, made other pitches to Epstein in 2002 about buying a radio station and newspaper in the Virgin Islands in order to control the narrative and to have an impact on territorial elections. Epstein did not purchase the media companies, but Epstein was instrumental in helping Plaskett win her 2014 election, the Free Beacon reported. Epstein was recruited to help Plaskett by Cecil DeJong, the office manager for Epstein and the then First Lady of the Virgin Islands. Quote, "Your help is needed. We're trying to get Stacey Plaskett elected to Congress," DeJong wrote on June 19, 2014, email to Epstein. She said Plaskett's primary challenger, then Virgin Islander legislator Sean Michael Malone, at a Senate hearing a week earlier, had criticized Epstein's sexual exploits. "He is nasty and needs to be defeated," DeJong wrote to Malone, adding that "we would have a friend in Stacey." DeJong asked Epstein to donate to Plaskett's campaign to help meet a goal of $75,000. So, Alex, had you heard that story? Or is this new information?
I had not. So if I understand correctly, they were basically doing something under the guise of a public project that was pretty much intended to be a partisan project, or was this purely partisan endeavor?
It looks like it's a purely partisan endeavor, but she definitely didn't want her name officially associated with it, I guess. I mean, like a hint association.
Yeah. And absolutely. Yeah. So the thing with the BVI, US, I guess, no, it's not BVI, it's US Virgin Islands. The thing with the US Virgin Islands is that, we kind of knew this already. Epstein had thoroughly compromised the entire place, right? Top to bottom, all the way to the governor or whatever it is they have there. And to, it's essentially, you have this woman there who is the Epstein, like, congressperson. It's fucking insane how thoroughly in control he was there. He even, I believe, was working to lower the age of consent. The U.S. Virgin Islands, like,
What? Why would he do that?
Well, it's like that email that she was using. It was like, it's unclear why she would use a anonymous email. Is it? Are we really confused about this?
Are we going to indict Uncle Jeffy for engaging in the democratic process when he tried to petition for lowering the age of consent?
Just a constituent, like everybody.
Just a constituent. Okay, we got one more story in the Epstein stack here. Thank God. And this was a CNN report about the Goldman Sachs Kathy Rumler resigning.
Fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein files has now reached one of the largest investment banks in the world, Goldman Sachs. The bank's chief legal officer, Kathy Rumler, now says she is resigning. In recent weeks, she has weathered numerous stories examining her relationship with Epstein over the years. Rumler is a former White House counsel to President Obama. She and those around her have insisted that her relationship with Epstein, it was a professional relationship through and through and ended. A spokesperson for Rumler declined to answer some of the detailed questions sent to them from CNN, but said that Rumler said this, has done nothing wrong, has nothing to hide, nothing in the record suggests otherwise, adding that Rumler has been clear and consistent from the outset. She knew him through her work as a criminal defense attorney, shared a client with him, received referrals from him, and was friendly in that professional context. After her resignation announcement, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, David Solomon, told CNN this: throughout her tenure, Kathy has been an extraordinary general counsel, and we are grateful for her contributions. He went on to say, I accepted her resignation, and I respect her decision.
An exclusive K-File report uncovering new details about top Goldman Sachs executive and former Obama White House counsel Kathy Rumler's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. A review of hundreds of emails between Epstein and Rumler, a woman he once called his, quote, great defender, shows discussions about Epstein's legal and reputational troubles, as well as more personal communications, like plans for a proposed trip to Epstein's island and gifts he'd given her. Rumler has repeatedly said she regrets ever knowing Epstein and that she had, quote, no knowledge of any new or ongoing unlawful activity on his part. That's her quote. Out front now, K-File's Andrew Kaczynski, who has been breaking all of this reporting. So, Andrew, what have you found?
Well, Aaron, these new messages reveal even more details about Kathy Rumler's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, a relationship that, according to these emails, both of them described as a friendship. There are hundreds of email exchanges between the two. Some of the messages, they discussed Epstein's legal battles and reputational problems after his 2008 conviction. Other communications between the two include plans for a proposed trip to Epstein's island and responses to gifts he'd given Rumler. For instance, she wrote, quote, totally tricked out by Uncle Jeffrey today. Jeffrey boots, handbag, and watch. Now, in some of these back and forth messages, Rumler discussed personal matters in her life. She expressed gratitude for their, quote, friendship, sometimes concluded her messages to Epstein with the sign-off XO and XOXO. There's one example we found where Rumler sent Epstein a message on his 62nd birthday in 2015 to wish him well, writing, I hope you enjoy the day with your one true love, adding a smiley face. Epstein replied with a raunchy note and an apparent reference to masturbation, writing, they say men usually give a name to their penis as it would be inappropriate to make love to a total stranger. Now, after receiving Epstein's racy reply, Rumler responded, hard to believe there is still an open question about whether men are the inferior gender.
Okay. So what has Rumler said about this message?
Well, Aaron, we asked them about that, and they referred this exchange. Rumler and her communications team referred CNN's questions about this to her attorney, Tom Clare, and this is what he told us. He said, quote, the fact is Ms. Rumler does not make any statement about Epstein's penis. She does not reference it. She does not joke about it. She does not banter with Epstein about it. She does not accede to Epstein's unsolicited, gratuitous remarks about men and their penises, nothing. Her participation in the entire exchange I think he meant is, limited to wishing Epstein a happy birthday, ridiculing Epstein for the remark, and exiting the exchange.
Okay, so the files also reveal new details about how Rumler advised Epstein regarding some of his legal and reputational problems. So what more can you tell us about that tonight?
Well, yeah, that's right, Aaron. In one exchange from February 2015, Rumler addressed a Crimes Victims' Rights Act lawsuit brought by Epstein's accusers. That's the lawsuit which sought to reopen his so-called sweetheart plea deal from 2008. Rumler wrote to Epstein, "I told you that the CVRA case is about money," and in another message after inquiring about which lawyer was handling the case, Rumler wrote, "Victims' rights, my ass." In another message from July 2015, Rumler forwarded Epstein a New York Times story which featured critics of sex offender registries like the one Epstein had been listed on for years by then. "Did you see the New York Times story? Ray, misapplication of sex offender registry. Thinking about whether there is an opportunity there," Rumler wrote. Now, a spokesperson for Rumler told CNN in a statement that Epstein, quote, "sought informal advice and she provided feedback based on her understanding at the time without any formal involvement."
Okay. Well, you also found emails that show Rumler responding to an invitation from Epstein to visit that infamous private Caribbean island, right?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. According to the newly released files, Rumler at one point inquired about taking a, quote, day trip to Epstein's private island. In a January 16, 2017 email that you can see right here, Epstein asked if he could have a plane pick her up in St. Lucia to fly her to, quote, the island. Rumler replied asking, "Can we take a day trip to the island on Saturday, or is it too far?" Emails then show a week later Epstein appearing to coordinate a private jet to pick her up and referencing a copy of Rumler's passport. This trip appears to have fallen through, though, with Rumler writing 2 days later there was, quote, "still too much risk in the air." Later that year, a topic of the island actually came up again in messages between the two. After Hurricane Irma damaged the island, Rumler mused about traveling there to help Epstein clean up, writing, "You know how much I like physical labor." It's unclear whether Rumler ever visited the island, and she has denied ever going there.
Okay, so what is she saying about these emails then?
So, Aaron, Jennifer Connelly, Rumler's spokesperson, declined to answer some of the detailed questions from CNN, but she told us this, quote, "Ms. Rumler has done nothing wrong and has nothing to hide. Nothing in the record suggests otherwise. Jeffrey Epstein was a man of 1,000 faces. Ms. Rumler only saw the one he put on to win people over and gain credibility and acceptance. Her views were shaped by that and his denials of any wrongdoing other than what he had pled guilty to years prior. Ms. Rumler has been clear and consistent from the outset. She knew him through her work as a criminal defense attorney, shared a client with him, received referrals from him, and was friendly in that professional context. At times, Epstein sought informal advice, and she provided feedback based on her understanding at the time without any formal involvement. Ms. Rumler has deep sympathy for those harmed by Epstein, and if she knew then what she knows now, she never would have dealt with him." Aaron?
All right, Andrew Kaczynski.
So, since that was sort of buried at the beginning of that story, Miss Catherine Rumler was White House counsel under the Barack Obama administration. So she had a very high up role in that administration prior to working for Goldman Sachs. So, this story just keeps on giving. Every single administration basically has its tentacles involved.
Did it cover the Uncle Jeff, kitted out by Uncle Jeff email that she sent?
Well, I mean, it was in there, but they didn't pay too much attention to the usage of the phrase Uncle Jeffrey. Although I have been, calling him Uncle Jeffy.
Doing your part. So
I've been,
I highlight that because, I think somebody had a very good piece of analysis on this, which is that when you are, the White House chief counselor or whatever? What was her position?
It was White House counsel, and she was,
Right. So basically what happens is that you are more connection rich than you are money rich, right? You are sort of rubbing noses with people who are, billionaires, but you are yourself a public servant.
The official Wikipedia entry for White House counsel is: the White House counsel is a senior staff appointee of the President of the United States whose role is to advise the president on all legal issues concerning the president and their administration. The White House counsel also oversees the Office of White House Counsel, a team of lawyers and support staff who provide legal guidance for the president of the White House office.
So basically, a chief lawyer to the president is a reasonable way to describe it.
Yeah. Huge role.
Point being, right? You are, in a position of immense power, but you are personally quite poor, potentially. And what I've found about Epstein is that he exploits arbitrage a lot, right? Like, so in this case, he bought her some, accessories. I mean, okay, like what's the big deal here? But that allowed her to look, wealthy in a situation where perhaps she wasn't when she was interacting with people who just had a lot of the nice things, right, that she might have wanted but couldn't get. So for each person that he was maintaining in his orbit, he would find what that gap was, right? For some of them, like for Bill Gates, it might be that he is insanely rich but can't get any woman, say. For her, it was that she was insanely powerful but didn't have the trappings of wealth or whatever, right? Like that's, I think, a pattern that we should pay attention to.
Okay. I want to open up anyone who wants to request to speak, because we sort of passed through that at the halfway mark, and it's been a lot of news the last couple of weeks, and perhaps some people have some comments they've been wanting to make, and we just haven't gotten to them. I'm going to open this up to request to speak.
By the way,
go ahead and yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. As we're waiting for people to ask to speak, I sent you another BVI story where the wife of the governor or whatever they have in the U.S. Virgin Islands was sending him the text of a new law on sex offenders and asking him if that wording is okay with him.
Oh man, I'll have to read that. Oh, definitely. Ross Dahl, thank you for requesting to speak. What do you have to say or talk about?
Yeah. Yo, I'm just jumping from like space to space here, just checking out. I'm new to spaces like this week, but just jumped in here, heard you guys talking. You sound pretty intelligent, and you talk about, the biggest thing in news right now. I'm in Canada. Like, I'm up in Vancouver, and so we're kind of watching from like outside perspective. But like, what the hell is going on in the US? Like, this involves both parties, man, going back like multiple presidents. Like, your country should be like at the verge of civil war over this. Like by any moral standing. No. By any moral standing in the planet, like their peoples would be like up in arms over this.
Buddy,
and it's so bizarre watching it from the outside. Like
our former president, former President Barack Obama just went on a podcast and told us aliens exist and then said nothing further about it. So I think we have our work cut out for us on things to handle.
We have, I mean, to the degree that I consider myself part of America by virtue of fathering young Americans, I will say there is ample reasons for a civil war in this country. Epstein is actually one of the minor ones.
Yeah, that's a bipartisan effort right there. That's something that brings us together. That creates much more cohesion. Yeah, much
exactly.
More cohesion.
I mean, I do want to say actually something about this, which is that, normally I would despise Ro Khanna, and I'm sure I disagree with every single opinion he has on economics. But I must say, Ro Khanna is, so for anybody who doesn't know this, Ro Khanna is the man who is the congressperson. I just say congressperson because the whole House and Senate thing is confusing to me, who is working with Massey to get these Transparency Acts through. He's kind of like the head, sort of from the left, leading the charge. And I must say that I remember him from the Twitter files being the only person who was emailing the staff at Twitter, telling them that when they were doing what they were doing about the Hunter Biden laptop, that this was a First Amendment violation and that was not optional. Like what you were doing here, he was like, I'm pro Biden as anybody can be, but this is a First Amendment violation. So if anything, this has given us more reason to continue to appreciate people on the left and right who have their heads screwed on straight at this point versus their stablemates who are as corrupt as it gets. I mean, the hate directed against Massey is fucking insane, man. Like, what am I looking at?
Well, Ross, you joined in and said that you're just, hopping from space to space. We published this Twitter space to Spotify and Apple as a podcast after we close it off. And I just reposted a special we did last year on a story called Pizzagate. I don't know if you've ever heard of something called Pizzagate. You're saying that you're from Canada, so I don't know if the scandals that leak throughout the U.S. and cause controversy make their way into your news cycles where you are. But we did a 3-hour retrospective on that story, which has many similar beats to this current Epstein story. So I invite you to go back and listen to that podcast, which I did post to this direct link to that special in this thread here, linking to this space, that perhaps you can understand why particularly your current host here, me, Dr. RollerGator, and my co-host Alexandros Marinos are not more enraged. It's that these stories are what we'll say par for the course. They are part of the atmosphere that we've always been around. So there's nothing particularly novel or alarming in this scenario, except for the fact that we are finally getting a significant amount of information through a giant fire hose blasted at our face. There's nothing particularly novel about it, except for the voluminous amounts of information that we are being given. The ideas and the salacious nature of the stories is unfortunately rather normal. Ross,
the reason why we don't rebel against our government is because we're so beaten down with corruption for decades that we're just like swimming through corruption, and that's why we can't confront our government over these obvious moral crimes.
I'm not aware of a single place where people revolted against the corruption that they observed in their government and they replaced it with something that actually cleaned up the corruption in the government. So if you can point to a place where people's passions and emotions causing them to get up in arms and rebel actually brought forth a brand spanking new utopia where there weren't additional problems, I'm glad to hear it, and I will then get my anger meter turned up to 11.
There's always additional problems. Look, there's always additional problems, but if you want to talk about something that was going from like a corrupt system to going to something like that was born out of some idealistic virtues, you can go to the founding of the United States itself. But that was a long time ago. Like, it came from virtue, but its virtue is gone. And now it's just
right
like
now,
this big,
the most violent individuals are the communists in the streets. So I don't think I'm going to start to pick up arms and rebel alongside the communists to bring forth some sort of.
It's not isms, man. It's a moral thing. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're left, right, center, what ism you want to attach to your ideology. It doesn't matter. This is a moral outrage. It's on every side of the political spectrum. Both halves of your one government are involved in this going back decades. And you guys are weighed down with so much corruption that you can't even rebel against this. Like, obvious moral corruption against every single ism and ideology out there. Like,
how do you suggest we rebel? Can you give us the play-by-play? How do you suggest we rebel? What would you see in a more moral society?
Every single one of you should be taken to the streets and protesting.
And then?
At a minimum, there should be protests that every side, it doesn't matter what your skin color is, what your religion is, whether you're a communist, a fucking Antifa, or a far right, whatever. I don't care. Stand together against this moral outrage.
Are you familiar?
I don't disagree with you. So just as a special for Ross Gator, I've sent you a video from a podcast that I wouldn't normally. Oh, I don't know. I listen to it sometimes. That is quite lefty. It's this Canadian lawyer called Dimitri Lascaris, don't laugh, said Canadian, who did this investigation into one of Epstein's recruiters, who appears to have been had a weird relationship with this Canadian company that they dig into in that video. It's a little bit sloppy, but it's very, very interesting. So Gator, if you want to attach it to the thing, and maybe Ross can have another look at it.
I know who that guy is. I've seen a bunch of stuff. Like you're not telling me anything new here. Like
no, but have you seen his particular investigation into the recruiter of Epstein?
Who these people are? I'm well familiar with like global history, American history. Like I'm very well familiar. You're dodging the point that I'm making right now.
Dude, I'm not dodging anything. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Thank you.
I can still. Did you?
It's all right. I kicked him out. I kicked him out. I think this is. We're not here to have fights with people. We're here to do our best to understand the situation. And if people want to be aggressive, that's up to them, and they can do it somewhere else.
Well, I had a couple follow-up questions. I can handle someone being disappointed in me. I'm a very disappointing individual.
At the point where I'm giving him new material and he just says, "I know who that is," you're not giving anything new without having actually watched the material I'm talking about, he's not interested in conversation.
Fair enough, but I did have a follow-up question. I was going to ask him if he was familiar with, he's talking about a moral outreach, and I was going to ask him if he was familiar with things like Project MKUltra, and I was going to go through some of the things that we've covered about, CIA experiments and other sort of military experiments that were done on unsuspecting individuals in the country and cover-ups involving that, and the plethora of things that have occurred in the course of human history involving the United States government and governments all across the world, and to ask why this particular specific Epstein situation rises above those in alarm, right? Where it is now the time.
I just don't understand what exactly, and I asked, and I don't think the answer had anything to do with it. I mean, just like go out on the streets. Okay, look, man, I'm from Greece, right? I've seen what that looks like. I know it looks like nothing. Like we went out on the streets and we elected the far left, and they ended up doing what the EU wanted. So, Trump was supposed to be the reaction. Like, so,
do you remember? They
literally went into the Capitol.
I don't know if you remember me mentioning this sort of a paraphrase from Jacques Ellul. Jacques Ellul wrote many deep books, and one of them is a book aptly named Propaganda. And a paraphrase from that is Ellul explaining, this was written in the 60s, but it's still very appropriate, and I do quote the book frequently on my timeline as I find it important, and I might quote it again tonight. It's that the classic idea about propaganda is that it's there to try to change people's opinions, but changing people's opinions is an extremely long and laborious process, and you need a lot more systematic controls to change people's opinions. But modern propaganda is built on trying to pull the levers and exploit the things that people are already focused on to then get them to act as your sort of like your pawns in your war at the moment that they want you to take action. So they're the ones trying to make sure that they're placing all of the symbology, all of the things that you're supposed to care about, placing them all neatly in front of you to get your passions alarmed, to then give you something to focus on as a way to express your emotional passion, and therefore do their bidding.
So basically, you're describing something like when AIPAC goes after some Congress person that they want to get out, they won't say.
If that's the example you'd like to pull, Alex, sure.
Okay, fine, whatever. But no. But what I'm saying is, they don't say like this person is hostile to Israel. They will say this person voted against Biden on the Build Back Better Act or whatever, right? They find whatever the constituents might be interested in.
Yes,
that can be spun.
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Okay, but specific.
So the action you're talking about is the vote. What they care about is you voting the way they want you to, and the rationale, they'll just build that on top of whatever values you have. They don't care. It's fine.
Well,
you can be upset about Epstein. They'll give you an Epstein defender if you want.
If we're talking about the distinction between trying to change opinions and exploiting opinions that are already currently held, yes, that's a distinction. But what I am much more outside of voting, I'm much more talking about trying to specifically take actions and trying to ride on people's passions to get them to mobilize, to take physical action. That is often a lot more what is intended by certain propaganda campaigns. And you can see a lot of this currently expressed on the left, which involves physical action and physical participation into programs and societies that in self invite further action, that the action itself does not stop, that once you take into the particular bite of the action, that you are then sort of bootstrapped onto a paradigm where further action is required because you can't, you're on basically like on a track, on a train. Okay. You are now participating. You've done something that has sort of put you at odds with let's say polite society. And in order to justify that action, you have to find that justification in your new surroundings, which often involve networks and things like that. But the point is,
I mean, somebody could say that about us, right? Having taken some heterodox opinions and then, finding material to justify said opinions. But the thing about us is that we're not having to try hard at all to find the materials.
Well, so my point goes back to what he was basically battle crying. He wanted us to take action. He felt that we were not impassioned enough about the scenario, and that our, as I would describe it, rather emotionally stable, calm dissection with a little bit of morbid humor and laughter about the scenario to sort of ameliorate some of the obnoxious, more deleterious emotional aspects of the subject. He wanted us to do something, right? Take action, go out and protest. Well, the moment we go out and protest, and you asked a very salient question, and then what? Well, obviously going out and protesting would not do something. We would go out and we'd find a group, and then that group
what would happen is that you would have leaders of said rebellion emerge somehow, quote unquote, organically, right? And those people would be the people that had been pushed to, quote unquote, emerge, right? And they would be the kind of people that the people who, the powers that be benefit from them coming into action. But there's a deeper into power. But there's a deeper issue here, and the deeper issue is this. We don't actually know how to build, morally sane. I'm not saying moral. I'm saying just like not absolutely ridiculously immoral, organizational systems for a country of 350 million people, right? I mean, arguably, we don't know how to do it for a group of 10 friends, but definitely for a country of 350 million people. So I think I've been looking for this tweet of mine that I put out during COVID, which said, if you put in power the best dissident doctors and they take over all the health apparatus, 20 years, 5-10 years later, you'll end up right where you started, because fundamentally the positions are controlled by the pipeline and the incentive matrix that you have when you're in that position. Like you still have to listen to the same people. You still have the same incentives. You still have the same problems, and you still reach for the same solutions. So the problem isn't really. I mean, okay, I don't know how far I can go with this, but I would say that the problem is not exclusively that there's a certain person who is particularly nasty. I remember what I said before about the arbitrage, right? Yes, Epstein exploited various imbalances in the system to get himself ahead. But the imbalances are always going to exist, and therefore people like Epstein are always going to exist that are going to weasel the way into power. Epstein was not elected to anything, right? He wasn't our representative in any kind of way. He just did favors for people, and people are always going to need favors.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, the gentleman rabble-rousing gentleman did not have any.
The gentleman from Canada.
Yes, the rabble-rousing gentleman from Canada did not have any actual answers for the problems that he saw, but assuming that he was a genuine individual and wasn't someone who was, as he said, going from space to space, assuming he wasn't a plant of some kind or a paid operative who was meant to enrage people's emotions. The emotions are understandable and exploitable. And if you are not self-aware of your own ability to be exploited because of your emotional state, then you are going to become someone's pawn in some way. And expressing that you've had enough. I'm going to play real quick Howard Beale from the movie Network, which is always the cathartic emotional sentiment that people want to express, but it is definitely relegated in that movie in a way that just says it leads to madness on its own. This is unfortunately an advertisement. 1 second, I'll let the advertisement play because I'm on a different tab here. If you listen to this is the sentiment everyone wants to express.
Dog tested.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I want you to get up right now. Get up, go to your windows, open them, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Things have got to change.
How many stations does this go out?
You've got to get mad.
67.
You've got to say,
I know it goes to Louisville and Atlanta.
We're not going to take this anymore. Then we'll figure out what to do about the depression and the inflation and the oil crisis. But first, get up out of your chairs, open the window, stick your head out and yell, and say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Who are you?
So that is an iconic clip from the movie Network, and I've invited Mighty Canoe, who is requesting to speak, up, and I don't know if it's actually taking and honoring the invite. Mighty Canoe, if you are up, because I don't see you yet, go ahead and comment.
I feel like I'm up.
Okay, I can hear you.
Yep. Well, I just was going to say, guys, missed a great opportunity to ask old Ross about the trucker protest.
How did that work out for you?
I mean,
yeah, it's a very good point. A missed opportunity indeed, because it did slip my mind as well. So you got a bunch of truckers out and you honked a lot, and then all of your bank accounts got frozen, and then everyone who donated to you lost their access to the banking system,
and they all still had to get their shots. So I mean, I believe in our right to protest. I'm with him, but yeah, that's all. That's all I wanted to say. Ross, if you're still out there, I'm not sure if you were a trucker Maybe you were one of the guys out there honking under working people's windows all night long, and then had your bank accounts frozen. But I mean, the good news is then they did lose Trudeau. So, I mean, maybe it was successful in the end. Maybe
they
these
lost
things
Trudeau, but Trudeau gained a Katy Perry.
So we lost to Katy Perry. So it was successful. We lost one of our female astronauts.
Yes, we did.
If Trudeau if his next act is to turn into Russell Crowe, I think. No, what's his name? That will be amazing. You know, the Katy Perry pipeline. We will know then that it's true.
Oh no, Russell Brand.
Right. Yes. If she Russell Brands Justin Trudeau, then it will truly have been worth it. Everything will have been worth it.
We got another request to speak from LP, whose handle is Mouse Math. I'd go ahead and comment. LP, welcome. If you can find your mute button.
Hi there. I just wanted to chime in on Alex's conversation with the perturbed gentleman. I've had the conversation quite a bit about this. What if it comes to fruition that we are able to take down our government? Well, that's great and all, but what's going to come next is a promise of Peter Thiel and Palantir and everything that he brings of this will never happen again. We will protect your children. And that seems to be the discussions in some of the circles in which I run. And I can't help but think that there is some legitimacy to that. It seems very odd that, despite POTUS's kicking and screaming of not wanting to release the files, they're released exactly at this time when he's in office, because, I mean, what a perfect way to overthrow a government, to install a new one that you're looking to install for the future. And I guess I'm wondering what you have to say about that, or if you have any thoughts on that, and, maybe even try to surmise of what our perturbed Canadian speaker would have thought about that.
Alex, I'll give you first swing since she addressed you directly.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, right? Because collectivism, unfortunately, has many faces. And on the left, it comes across as communism, as in, why can't we all share or whatever? Just tax the billionaires and feed the poor and whatever. Sure. But on the right, it comes across as, totality. And I hate, you have to believe me, I hate to say this because I'm in technology and I do try, as probably people have heard me, to see the good in technology and in technology. And I've also seen how people talk negatively about technologists, often without having the backing for it. But at this point with Palantir, it's kind of hard to defend, and I'm not even going to try. And I will say, that's the technocracy angle, right? That's the angle of we will surveil, we will monitor, we will be here, we will protect you, whatever it is. But that's collectivism, right? That is still one big central thing that imposes its will on everybody. And unfortunately, the one thing that doesn't have its defenders in the political scene is the individual, the people who are no, just let me do my thing, and you do your thing, I do my thing, and then we don't have to, we can agree to work together if we want to, but that doesn't mean that you get to be the watcher that nobody watches, and you watch me, and somehow if you choose to come after me, you come after me, and if I don't bother you, you leave me alone. That's the problem. Unfortunately, collectivism is not a left-wing only thing, and unfortunately, on the right, I am seeing this weird merger with certain strands of the technology world into a weird technocratic hybrid that is extremely unfortunate, to say the least.
Oh, definitely. The 2A community is a lot of discussion on this.
Well, there's even before the technocratic sort of merger, the auto-fascism that sort of can generate from that sort of thing, you have a problem. Conceptually, it's sort of a humorous thing that occurs with what you'll say on the libertarian side, which is the more independently minded people who believe that you can just construct networks of individuals based off of bilateral agreements, sort of all over the place, and have some independent arbitrators doing all the functions that courts normally do, and sort of bootstrap society that way. It's the fact that when you have to overthrow something in order to get that, you first have to then form a collective. And when you form the collective, at first to overthrow the thing that you're supposedly agreeing, after it's overthrown, you will go become independent. There is always the incentive structure that winds up self-perpetuating. An organism does not like to commit suicide at the end. It will almost always find a reason to exist, find some new cause. And if you did have a successful, if you did have a successful band of individualists grouped together for a common cause and successfully overthrow something, there would be a new threat that would somehow magically appear, most likely, that would require them to stay this collective and have to find some sort of organization that guides them all to the best purpose. Because in order to keep the free associative state that they've just supposedly gained ground in winning, they have to fight the next big bad. That there almost always a way for this collective to keep being a collective and never really retreat to the individualist section. The United States had a decent chance in its formation because it started as an amalgamation of states. Right? It started as independent states that decided that they were going to form a union, and the federalism, the federalist proposition was supposed to be very limited, but that, as we saw, starting with the progressive era in the early 1900s, was the collective beginning to find a reason to exist and self-perpetuate. And that's when the usurpation came in and became the monstrosity that it is today through many series of moves. But it's very, very difficult to have something long lasting that is actually better than the thing that came before it just through one violent revolution. It just does not typically emerge in that way.
I will say, if we want more of this, we need more transparency. I think transparency is that one thing that is sort of a leveler, and that it's hard to. You can misuse it if you have structurally imbalanced transparency, but this kind of thing where, the government is forced to release its own documents or what they're using for investigations or stuff like that, I think that is the sort of thing that moves the needle in the right direction. So if anything, we shouldn't be, I had kind of said, I made a tweet that, Thomas Massie single-handedly proves democracy has failed, and also that it works. I actually don't think it's time for a revolution. I think it is time to take what works and build on it.
I think you're right, Alex. I'm wondering if that's how it's going to work, because historically, I just don't see things really functionally being built on top of each other. It seems like there's some sort of nasty revolution or war, and then another country comes in and essentially, finances it back to, the same country, but not really. Right. I can kind of see, I guess what I'm saying is you're right about it's not, it wouldn't be time for any sort of revolution, because even if they were to succeed, they would be so tired afterwards. How would they possibly set up a government or even begin to, govern roadways, hospitals, manage hospitals, phone lines?
The American Revolution was a very unique moment in the world. And if you look at France, right, France was sort of the spiritual successor to the American Revolution, but France basically had to reset itself every couple decades because their revolutionary spirit was ever existent, and they were never particularly satisfied with what came forth after the revolution they just had. It was a constant remaking of a revolution. They're still trying to have revolutions every couple of years now. They have the yellow vests up there, who are a revolutionary group. There was a book written by a revolutionary group called The Coming Insurrection that was published in France, talking about a future desire to overthrow the current existing government. And I'm not saying that that's going to pan out, but the revolutionary tendencies in France are everlasting, because even though in the U.S., people like Thomas Jefferson and such took a lot of inspiration from the revolutionary spirit of the French, you have to have something coherent to and systemically stable, something with a positive equilibrium at the end of it. And the U.S. Revolution, the American Revolution, was very unique in that its founding fathers had a very eclectic set of perspectives.
A way to think about the American Revolution as opposed to other revolutions is that the American Revolution was a succession. It didn't have to take down the powers that be, because the powers that be are the ones that revolted in a way. Mm-hmm. It was it was the local elites that revolted against the remote elites, if you want.
Yeah.
And as such, it wasn't socially destabilizing in the same way. I don't know if that's maybe
no. It is also a very important
sense.
component. It is also a very important component because there was a disconnected culture in the States that had already been evolving, that no longer really found the same camaraderie with the British nature, and that it found itself increasingly disconnected from the British rule. And had it, so it was basically two sets of common law that were evolving separate from each other, and one was trying to maintain control, and that just wasn't, But still, the founding fathers had. I mean, if you look at the debates between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and you look at the constitutional debates and the arguments, there was just so much rich, intense philosophical moments that we just can't. We're not going to get back, because right now, the most brilliant minds are some of the stupidest people you've ever listened to right now. We don't have the same type of intelligent spirit. So the circumstances are just not the same. We're not going to be able to duplicate the efforts. And what we would wind up being would be something very akin to whatever the European Union's currently doing, or basically just remodeling what Canada kind of is like. And that's, it's fine, but it's not like it's not a haven. It's not a, it's not a utopia.
Here's a question I've wondered, and I apologize if it comes across as excessively abstract, but in these spaces we're in, right? Like, a lot of people operate with some variation of the schema that, the powers that be encroach on our liberties ever more year after year. And of course, you kind of draw you extend the chart, right, into like, well, obviously sooner or later we'll all be slaves and they'll be controlling us, right? Okay. And it's usually worded in ways that make it feel inevitable and eternal, right? That's just how things work. However, I've often wondered, why are we free, right? How come we have the freedom we do have, and we enjoy and we make use of now? Surely if these dynamics are as sort of unstoppable as they appear, and they have been in force throughout the world for a very long time, then surely we wouldn't have been able to retain this kind of freedom until now, right? So there's a real question as to, where does freedom come from? Because surely if you want more of it, you need to understand the process that produces it and maybe amplify it, right? So I don't have a good answer. I have some hypotheses, but I think people, before they start talking about revolutions, and a good model of why they think that we have the freedom we do have. And I'm not saying it's perfect, right?
Right.
Trust me. But it's kind of a narrative violation by existence in a way. And I think without having that explanation in hand, I wouldn't trust anybody to try to extend my freedom if they don't understand how it came to be to begin with.
Mouse math.
So Alex, what I'm hearing you saying is that we need more guns, guerrilla warfare.
Sorry, I had the audio drop. Can you repeat?
I said, I think what you're saying is that we need more guns and guerrilla warfare. I think that's what united the original fathers.
I definitively did not say that, but okay.
Well,
pretty sure you did.
I do appreciate America. Being from Europe and having grown up in Europe and having come here for some variation of the freedom that exists here. I do appreciate the American spirit, and the Second Amendment is definitely a part of that. So, for what it's worth, but I'm not necessarily saying that people need more guns.
Without getting too far into the weeds, your point, Alex, is correct that it is extremely difficult to hone in exactly what one means by freedom, because the concepts wind up being entangled with in a murky way the concept of slavery, because the freedoms that we have always have the ability to be described as the illusion of freedom, and it is very delicate to differentiate between what true freedom means as a concept versus the illusion of freedom. Meaning, a generic shitty example is that, in the United States, we drive on the right side of the road. The actual right-handed side of the road. Of course, I believe it's the correct side as well, but meaning that we drive on the right side of the road, so that opposing traffic is on the left. Right. And so it's the opposing traffic side is their right side. And so we all have that agreement, because if we didn't have that agreement, maybe there's an experiment that shows that traffic can find its own self-organization. But in general, we understand that if someone doesn't obey the red light, catastrophe can happen. We understand that if someone doesn't obey the rules of the road and agrees that their freedom has certain restrictions in order to be maximized as freedom to move itself, that without those compensations, freedom for everyone sort of becomes impossible. There is a phenomenon in people, which is that if you have too many possibilities to choose from, you can wind up being stuck in a completely frozen state, because you are unable to choose from an infinite number of possibilities. But if your possibilities are now restricted to 3 to 5, now it's easier to choose between them, and now you're actually expressing a freedom of a kind, right? So the trade-off between having unlimited ability for freedom of expression, like the freedom to murder someone whenever you so choose, right? The idea that this provides the whole with a freedom that we believe is ideal is sort of lost right at that level. But when you restrict freedom in certain ways, you actually expand the capacity for the individual to express freedom in certain ways.
I think the key element here is that the laws like traffic apply equally to everybody, right? And it doesn't matter who you are. Because the red light is for everybody, unless you're an ambulance. Like there's very specific exceptions, and the exceptions are part of the rules as well. You learn them when you get your driver's license. Right. So that system, I think, has a very good shot at being near universally accepted. There's not too many, conscientious objectors to the traffic direction or whatever that will drive on the wrong side of the road just because, right? Because it makes sense that yes, everybody follows the law, and then we get something out of it for that sort of enforced convention, so to speak. The problem is when you have laws that are enforced, haphazardly, or, you can get a better lawyer and you'll get a smaller sentence, and, plea bargains and, all the exceptions and stuff that ultimately boils down to that's, the laws apply to certain people and not to others. Right. And that's where, things become much more murky.
All right. We'll do Donald J. Trump, who requested to speak. We'll see if Mighty Canoe has any last comments, and then give LP the last word, and we'll close out for the day, I think, here. Donald J. Trump, go ahead.
I might not be the one to have then, because I was going to say we're talking about revolution, but shouldn't we really be talking about, like, if it's an American thing and it's against the leadership, really wouldn't it be more of a civil war? In which case, I don't see it going down like the old Civil War, because when the South, where the Confederates, pulled away from the Union, they had the support of the countryside. Whereas I don't know if that would happen these days if there was an actual civil war. I think it would be a bunch of cities basically under siege by the countryside. I mean, and they could maybe get resupplied by air, but I just don't see the logistics of how this would go down like the previous Civil War.
Well,
the Berlin Air Bridge, basically, but for every blue state.
I mean, really, a civil war would be very difficult, because we basically, there's a whole bunch of red places with these blue enclaves in the cities, and we're not going to have a clean separation of geography in any sort of civil war. It's going to be a cluster.
I have only one request, Donald J. Trump, PhD, that if the revolution happens and it's red versus blue, we put Lindsey Graham in the blue column. Can we do that?
Oh, please do.
Thank you.
Mighty Canoe, do you have any further thoughts there from the discussion, or are you discussioned out for the evening?
For me?
Well, I was going to give Mighty Canoe an opportunity, but she just dropped off. So go ahead, Mouse Math. Do you have any further comments or thoughts as we start to close out?
Well, I was going to ask Trump over here. It sounds like you've studied a little bit of warfare. That's pretty interesting. I was thinking that if it did come to anything in terms of a civil war revolution, it would either be like a proxy war or an ideological or revolutionary war, rather than like a center-seeking or secessionist or even an ethnic or sectarian conflict, like we see, in other countries, or resource wars, which we see everywhere. It's not a very good example, but resource wars happen quite frequently. But anyway, I guess I really hope that this doesn't come to pass. But from what I've heard, this has actually been set up to come to pass, with the same idea that I kind of presented earlier as, first start with QAnon and get a certain group angry enough to get Trump elected. And once Trump elected, let's release all the files while he's in office and really get people angry. Then we're going to allow Trump to do something that's completely unconstitutional by creating these groups like ICE, and really piss off the demographic by doing things like ripping, kids away from their families and doing all these inflammatory things. Which is just enough, to, like our earlier Canadian brethren that was not too happy. He wanted us to take action. He wanted things to move. But again, if that did happen, it just still comes down to, I think if that did happen, it would be very much have already been planned and put into play, so that a company, and I don't say this with any fear mongering for AI necessarily. No, I don't really like Peter Thiel. I'll just be honest there. He weirds me out. But I do have a feeling that would be the type of government that would then swoop in and try to promise all the things that we were afraid of and were moving against and didn't like. We didn't like our children being kidnapped and eaten and all these other things. And then they can promise, go ahead.
Would you perhaps prefer Teal, prefer Peter if he were in a different color, like cyan instead of teal?
Am I pronouncing it?
No, you did it fine. I'm making a joke. That's all. I'm making. I'm doing the bad thing and making very bad puns.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, I am a pretty big fan of orange. That's
All right,
a really good
Peter
color.
Orange.
Not on Trump though. Trump didn't do the right orange. He did,
Okay.
Tennessee prison orange. So it's not.
Well, Donald J. Trump here is our resident boom boom expert. So he does come in and give us information about explosives and various gun related information, because he has seen some combat, if I'm not mistaken, sir. Donald J. Trump, PhD.
Yeah, I've spent probably half my adult life in war zones, so it's been fun.
I bet. Much time in Afghanistan.
Yes, a good amount of time in Afghanistan, a good amount of time in Iraq, a good amount of time fighting ISIS. It's just, and I can tell you like the ideological difference between all those groups, the Civil War, what happened in Iraq. I was on the ground for most of that stuff. So that's why I figure I think you're correct. It'll probably be an ideological civil war here, but I think what a lot of the people who win are probably just going to be going for the status quo, maybe status quo ante if they win.
That's an interesting thought, because I honestly hadn't really thought of anybody from the theoretical group that wins actually taking over leadership. For some reason in my mind, it just always kind of occurred that, okay, they finished the Civil War, they're exhausted, they can't support the road maintenance, they can't support the hospitals, and they allow a bigger company with money to come in. Because that's, I guess, what seems to happen in other countries. Once they are battle torn, rebuilding itself is not something that's easy, especially when you need things up and running pretty quickly, like hospitals, or care for children who have been injured during the conflict and who need care if you want to have a population going forward. So that's interesting. And but thank you for your service over there in Afghanistan. That's not fun.
Well, I would go into our big advantage is we are hugely decentralized. So we're basically one nation with 50 nations under us. And then on top of that, you have decentralized supply routes with trucks and everything else. So would it be hard? Yes. Do I think the logistics could be sustained? As long as there's money coming from a state government or some kind of source, you can technically keep a lot of this stuff moving, or you can get it up fairly quickly. It depends on how little you're basically willing to keep the government out of it, except for, say, law enforcement and like anti-theft, purposes.
Okay, I do have another question for you, actually, since I know that you've been in the military. So I guess it's no strange thing that Texas has most of the military in it. If it were to secede, and I think I saw a map somewhere on Twitter, and it was talking about this hypothetical situation, and essentially most of the South, like you had mentioned, was kind of on board going after these larger cities. Do you think the military that is located in the South, which would be, I think, 77% of the military, would they stick with the South?
I think it depends on the inciting incident. If the left is definitely, or the left, the socialist, communist, whatever you want to call them, are definitely in the wrong, they're going to side. If it's a little bit more muddied, they may split. And the biggest problem is you're split, because almost all your combat troops are conservative, but a lot of your logs troops are a little bit more, I hesitate to use liberal, Jacobin, I guess. So you would have a split on that line. That would be interesting. As far as the National Guards might be more loyal to their states. So even if the military kind of splits, the National Guards will have their armories, and they have partial control of the ammo storage points. So it would be messy if the inciting incident's messy.
I will say it's kind of interesting that Elon has centralized all of his companies in Texas. I found that very fascinating. He's moved SpaceX, he's moved Tesla, he's moved even the Boring Company, I think. I think XAI.
Are you saying he's planning to break Texas off from the United States and form
country to his own. Back when I was thinking about this, I think the way I was thinking about this is, should the U.S. fail, he probably wants to be in a position to rescue a part of it that will keep his plans in play.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's talking about building chip fabs, by the way, which I think is extremely important. If you have chip fabs, you're sovereign. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying.
You know, you might be right, because we do have Samsung and Facebook down there too, and pretty much centralized all around Austin. I kind of saw it go up while I was there studying back in 2016 and doing research for UT.
Joe Rogan is in Austin, which means that all of the news will be centralized through Joe Rogan.
Oh,
but also
fun.
Lex Friedman.
Oh no! Oh
well,
no!
I don't live there anymore. I live in the countryside now. I've got my own nice little orchard, and I'm happy here. But anyway, no, that's interesting. And I just have one more silly question for Donald Trump over there. In a combat situation, would you ever carry a Tavor?
Oh God, no. Actually, what is it, Tavor? That's the Iraqi pistol, right?
Yeah, that's the bullpup, the TAR 21.
Oh, I generally don't trust. I don't know much about that one. I don't generally trust bullpups. So they're neat little ideas. Very few of them work as advertised. Maybe the steer hog.
Yeah, I think I just like the profile reduction in it. But you're right. Some of them can be finicky. Anyway, okay, thank you.
Well, thank you both military nerds over there for that last bit of the conversation that is over my head. Donald J. Trump, you'll have to clue me in on on the meaning of some of that later. I appreciate all the comments today. We do like it when we get people who request to speak, because it breaks up the monotony of my own voice. And as much as I appreciate talking to Alex, I do appreciate a break up from his thoughts too. And the more the merrier, as I think, and hopefully we will get through some of the rest of the stack that we will hopefully get through some of the rest of the stacks that I have here someday, because they are important to get through, I think, but we just never wind up having enough time for all of the dumb that makes its way into the world. And we did not get to any traces of AI dystopia this week, so I will try to start off with some traces of AI dystopia next week, and hopefully everyone has a wonderfully dumb week upcoming. Alex, especially you, have the dumbest week possible.
I don't know if I should say thank you to that, but thank you. Have a great week.
Take care, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.